Imagine a prince born into unimaginable luxury, yet haunted by the shadows of human suffering that no palace walls could hide. His journey reveals the timeless truth that true peace lies not in escaping life, but in embracing its deepest realities. From a dreamlike birth heralded by gods to a fierce battle with inner demons under a sacred tree, the Buddha's life unfolds as a blueprint for ending the endless cycle of pain that grips us all. What if the key to unbreakable serenity was discovered by a man who walked away from a kingdom only to conquer the greatest enemy, the illusions of the mind, the sheltered prince and the awakening to suffering, the majestic kingdom and prophetic birth? In the ancient city of Kapilavastu, a realm of unparalleled splendor rose like a divine jewel against the earthly landscape, where walls gleamed white as autumn clouds and towers stretched gracefully toward the heavens, evoking whispers of paradise among all who beheld it. This was no ordinary kingdom. Darkness and poverty were strangers here, banished by an inner light that shimmered through every street, melting away the mundane worries that plagued lesser lands. The people of Kapilavastu walked with faces aglow in contentment, children frolicking in gardens where flowers bloomed eternally in impossible hues, defying the season's whims. Silver moonbeams danced across rooftops by night, and by day the terraces captured the morning sun, transforming the city into a flowing river of lotuses drifting toward a serene, distant shore. Yet, beneath this perfection lay a profound truth. Even in paradise, the human heart discerns the subtle cage of existence, yearning for something beyond the visible splendor. Ruling this magnificent domain was King Suddhodana, a leader whose gentle yet firm hands wove compassion and truth into the fabric of society. He was the embodiment of wisdom, drawing people like flowers to the sun, generous in spirit and just in all dealings. His subjects adored him not out of obligation, but because his presence ignited the innate goodness within their hearts. However, even the wisest souls can be veiled by profound love, and Suddhodana's deepest strength became his greatest trial. As a parent, he confronted the universal anguish. Loving deeply means witnessing a loved one navigate an uncontrollable world, unprotected from its perils. In his fervent desire to shield those he cherished, he erected walls against pain, believing power could forge an impenetrable sanctuary. The king had wed multiple queens, as custom dictated for great rulers, but one captured his heart entirely, Queen Maya. Her beauty flowed from a divine source, her voice like birds heralding spring's dawn, carrying sweetness that mended the soul's deepest wounds. Her midnight-hued hair cascaded like waves, her forehead smooth as polished diamond, but her eyes cool as lotus petals on a tranquil pond, held wisdom from lifetimes past. Maya's virtue was fluid, inspiring elevation without judgment. She yearned for universal happiness, spoke unerring truth, and lived as an open-hearted exemplar of love. Together, Suddhodana and Maya dwelled in bliss so profound it sanctified ordinary moments, their contentment rippling like gentle waves across the kingdom's peaceful lake. Yet life, in its inexorable wisdom, prepared to intertwine deepest joy with profound trials. On a night when spring birthed anew elsewhere in the world, Maya dreamed a vision so wondrous that sages still whisper of it in reverence 2,500 years hence. A luminous young elephant descended from the skies, its passage parting clouds with grace, no ordinary beast, but pure light incarnate. 6 gleaming tusks like pearls adorned it, skin white as mountain snow or dawn's first light. Approaching with tenderness, it entered her womb, shifting the universe into exalted harmony. Gods materialized, singing melodies so exquisite that Maya's heart transcended petty anxieties. Hatred, anger, worries dissolved like mist in sunlight, awakening to unparalleled happiness, not from fulfilled desires, but from sensing her role in something infinitely beautiful. Maya wandered the palace gardens, settling beneath a welcoming tree amid nodding flowers. She dispatched trusted maidens to summon the king, her voice imbued with reverence, conveying urgency beyond the ordinary. In his audience hall, amid counselors and subjects' pleas, Suddhodana received the message, sensing its gravity in the maiden's tones. He hastened to her side, finding Maya transformed, her eyes alight with an inner sun, her presence sacred. She recounted the dream in meticulous detail, from the elephant's descent to the god's songs, concluding with a plea to consult wise Brahmins for interpretation. The king summoned the kingdom's foremost dream seers, men versed in divine communiques. Upon hearing her tale, their faces ignited with awe, voices trembling as they proclaimed, a son, favored by heavens, would be born. Should he renounce royalty for a wanderer's truth-seeking life, he would earn praise beyond mortal ken, adored across worlds as a Buddha, awakener to liberating truth. The ensuing months unfolded like a dream, Maya carrying her child with grace that blessed all beholders, the kingdom's air lighter with impending wonder. When blossoms burdened trees and nature rejoiced, Maya entered a floral grove, drawn to a branch heavy with joy's fragrance. Extending her hand, she birthed Siddhartha in perfect union with nature, maidens receiving the child as creation trembled in delight. In that instant, the world quivered. Trees flowered out of season, fruits ripened instantly, the sick healed, the hungry sated, the lost illuminated. A maiden raced to the king, announcing the son's birth with joy that lifted hearts. Suddhodana, radiant, summoned kin to the grove, bowing before the infant, naming him Siddhartha, he whose purpose will be fulfilled. Not far dwelt the ancient hermit Asita, revered for meditations that endeared him to gods. Hearing of the Savior's birth, he journeyed to the palace, received with honor. Asita, eyes shining, declared the child's divine marks foretold Buddhahood, weeping not for sorrow but his own impending death, missing the teachings that would end rebirth's torment. The kingdom flourished post-birth, riches swelling like tributaries, crops abundant, harmony reigning. Yet sorrow struck. Maya ascended to God 7 days later, her purpose fulfilled. Her sister Mahapajapati nurtured Siddhartha tenderly, the prince growing like fire in wind, moon among stars, sun over mountains in strength, beauty, wisdom. King Suddhodana, torn between pride and prophetic fears, surrounded Siddhartha with pleasures to deter renunciation, envisioning grandsons to perpetuate the line. Thus began the sheltered existence, a golden cage masking life's truths, setting the stage for awakening. Queen Maya's dream and the arrival of Siddhartha. The union of King Suddhodana and Queen Maya was a tapestry woven from threads of divine harmony, their love illuminating the palace like a perpetual dawn. Yet, as the seasons cycled through Kapilavastu's eternal bloom, life prepared to unveil its profound mysteries through the Queen's sacred vision. One fateful night, when the world hovered on the cusp of spring's rebirth, Maya lay in peaceful slumber beside her devoted husband. In the depths of her dream, a spectacle unfolded that transcended the boundaries of mortal imagination, a vision so ethereal and potent that it has echoed through millennia, inspiring mystics and seekers alike. From the celestial heights descended a magnificent young elephant, its form aglow with an otherworldly radiance that parted the clouds like veils before a holy revelation. This was no earthly creature, but a being of pure luminescence, its 6 majestic tusks shimmering like strands of pearls harvested from the ocean's deepest secrets. Its skin gleamed white as the untouched snow capping the Himalayas, or the pristine light of dawn heralding a renewed world. Moving with a grace that bespoke infinite compassion, the elephant approached Maya, her heart blooming open like a lotus recognizing its son. Gently, it entered her womb, and in that sacred union, the cosmos itself seemed to ascend to a higher octave of existence. Suddenly, the dreamscape filled with thousands of gods, their forms resplendent and joyous, singing hymns of such exquisite beauty that they dissolved all remnants of human frailty within Maya's spirit. In that instant, she comprehended a liberation profound. Hatred could no longer find purchase in her being. Anger evaporated like dew under morning rays, and the restless churn of worries that once clouded her mind vanished entirely, leaving only a vast, serene expanse. The vision imparted a happiness not born of fleeting desires, but of alignment with a cosmic purpose, a knowing that she was a vessel for something eternally beautiful and transformative. Upon awakening, Maya was enveloped in a bliss unlike any she had known, a profound contentment that radiated from her core, illuminating her features with an inner glow. She rose and wandered slowly through the palace gardens, where the morning breeze whispered secrets among the flowers. Finding a shaded sanctuary beneath a tree whose branches seemed to cradle her gently, she summoned 2 trusted maidens. "Go to the king," she instructed, her voice now carrying a timbre of quiet authority that compelled reverence. "Tell him his queen awaits in the garden beneath the flowering tree, for I have news of great import to share." King Suddhodana, immersed in the audience hall amid counselors addressing the kingdom's harmonious affairs, received the message with a quickening heart. The maiden's tones conveyed an urgency laced with wonder, prompting him to rise without delay, his royal duties yielding to the call of his beloved. He approached the garden with measured steps, his mind a whirl of anticipation and subtle concern. A husband's instinct when summoned unexpectedly. There sat Maya, her posture graceful, her face transformed by a luminosity that spoke of divine touch. One glance revealed a fundamental shift. She emanated a sanctity that humbled even the king. "My beloved," he inquired softly, settling beside her with the humility of one before a sacred oracle, "why have you sent for me? What weighs upon your heart that you share it here in nature's embrace?" Maya recounted the dream with unwavering precision, describing the elephant's descent, its luminous form, the entry into her womb, and the god's celestial chorus. Her words painted the vision vividly, each detail etched with the clarity of one who had glimpsed eternity. Concluding, she met his gaze with eyes brimming with joy and quiet, knowing, "My lord, our kingdom harbors wise Brahmins versed in dreams' arcane language. Summon them, I beseech you, to discern if this portends jubilation or lament." Without hesitation, Suddhodana convened the most erudite interpreters, scholars who had devoted lifetimes to deciphering the divine's subtle missives to humanity. As Maya relayed her experience, their expressions kindled with uncontainable excitement, voices quivering in awe. "O King, O Queen," they proclaimed, words flowing like a symphony of revelation. "A boundless joy awaits you. A son, blessed by heavenly favor, shall grace your lineage. Should he forsake the throne for a wanderer's quest in truth's pursuit, he shall merit adoration beyond earthly bounds, gifts surpassing kingdom's treasures. For he will be revered across realms as a Buddha, the fully awakened one who bestows the truth, liberating all from suffering's chains." The prophecy hung in the air like incense, infusing the palace with an aura of destined greatness. The months of gestation passed in a haze of gentle reverie, Maya bearing her child with an ethereal poise that seemed to sanctify the very ground she trod. The kingdom pulsed with heightened vitality, as if the unborn prince's essence lightened every burden and amplified every hope. Then, on a day when nature's bounty peaked trees laden with blossoms, the air alive with celebratory whispers, Maya sensed the moment's arrival. She ventured into a grove where Flora crafted a divine theater, branches drooping under floral opulence. Drawn to a tree, exuding concentrated joy, she gracefully extended her hand, drawing down a blossom-heavy branch. In that harmonious instant, standing serene with a sunrise-like smile, Siddhartha emerged. The attending maidens cradled the newborn as the universe quaked in ecstasy. Earth trembled delightedly, celestial dances echoed, trees of all climes burst into bloom, fruits manifested on barren limbs, afflictions lifted worldwide, the ill restored, the famished fulfilled, the shadowed bathed in inexplicable light. One maiden, feet scarcely grazing the earth in her elation, rushed to Suddhodana. "My lord, a son is born, destined to glorify your house and the world." The king, momentarily speechless, his visage aglow with transcendent joy, recognized the parental epiphany. The world reborn, infused with boundless love and possibility. Assembling the Shakya nobles, he led a procession to the grove, bowing deeply before the infant. "Bow as I do," he decreed, "to Prince Siddhartha, he whose purpose shall be fulfilled." Word reached the venerable hermit Asita in his mountain solitude, a sage whose uncountable years and austerities had forged bonds with the divine. Compelled by news of humanity's savior, he descended to the palace, his rare visit stirring excitement. Received with utmost honor, Asita's eyes gleamed with profound insight. "This grace befalls you, O king, for your virtue and ancestors' merit," he intoned. A celestial voice had heralded the child's birth, one destined for true knowledge. Gazing upon the infant, Asita discerned the ancient marks of Buddhahood, his heart swelling with joy for humanity's impending salvation. Yet tears streamed down his cheeks, a sigh escaping as he beheld the heavens. Suddhodana, alarmed, queried, "Why weep when glory is foretold?" Asita reassured, "I weep for myself, nearing life's end, unable to hear your son's liberating law." Relief mingled with the king's lingering anxiety over the renunciation prophecy, yet prosperity surged, affirming the child's auspicious presence. Maya's passing 7 days later, her earthly role complete, saw Siddhartha entrusted to Mahapajapati's care, where he flourished in grace. Thus, the arrival of Siddhartha marked not just a birth, but the dawn of enlightenment's promise, veiled yet in paradise's illusion. Early life in paradise and the hermit's prophecy. The birth of Prince Siddhartha infused Kapilavastu with an aura of divine favor, as if the very cosmos had aligned to bless the kingdom's already unparalleled splendor. From that momentous day forward, the land seemed to thrive under an invisible benediction. Rivers swelled with clear waters, fields yielded bountiful harvests that sustained all without fail, and the air carried a perpetual sweetness that lightened every heart. Cattle grazed sleek and content in evergreen meadows, women bore children with ease and joy, and harmony prevailed among neighbors, rendering conflict as rare as a summer snowfall. It was as though Siddhartha's presence elevated the collective spirit, transforming ordinary existence into a tapestry of tranquility and abundance. Yet, amid this golden prosperity, a shadow of sorrow descended upon the palace, reminding all that even in paradise, joy and pain intertwine like vines in a sacred grove. Queen Maya, whose earthly purpose had culminated in birthing the one destined to illuminate the world, could not contain the intensity of such fulfillment within her mortal form. 7 days after Siddhartha's arrival, she passed peacefully, ascending to realms where gods welcomed her as one who had served the divine with flawless grace. Her departure was not marked by anguish, but by a serene completion, as if she returned to the source from which her luminous virtue had flowed. In her stead, her sister Mahaprajapati stepped forward, a woman whose beauty and compassion nearly mirrored Maya's own. With a heart open to boundless love, Mahaprajapati cradled the infant prince as tenderly as if he were her own, perhaps even more so, recognizing the sacred trust bestowed upon her. Under her nurturing gaze, Siddhartha flourished like a flame kindled by auspicious winds, his development a marvel that drew admiration from all who beheld him. Like the moon reigning luminous among the stars, or the morning sun ascending majestically over eastern peaks, the young prince grew in strength, beauty, and wisdom that expanded with each passing day. His form embodied perfect harmony, his mind absorbed knowledge with effortless grace, and his presence evoked a quiet reverence even in childhood games amid the palace gardens. The people of Kapilavastu whispered of his extraordinary qualities, seeing in him the fulfillment of ancient prophecies that promised a being who would transcend mortal limitations. Yet, as years unfolded and Siddhartha transitioned from infant to child to youth, King Suddhodana found his paternal heart divided between unbridled pride in his son's radiance and a gnawing anxiety born of the hermit's foretelling. The memory of Asita's visit lingered like a persistent echo in the king's thoughts. Not long after Siddhartha's birth, word of the auspicious event reached the ancient hermit in his remote mountain retreat. Asita, whose years defied counting and whose meditations had earned him the god's favor, felt a profound longing stir within his soul upon hearing of the child destined to end humanity's cycle of suffering and rebirth. He set forth immediately for the palace, his arrival causing a ripple of excitement, for Asita seldom ventured from his solitude, and when he did, it heralded events of cosmic significance. His dignified bearing, forged by decades of austerity, commanded respect that made even monarchs incline their heads. King Suddhodana received the sage with the full honors prescribed for such a holy figure, his voice warm with gratitude. "Happy am I that my son has drawn the venerable Asita to our court. Command me, wise one. I am your disciple in all things." Asita's eyes, sharpened by years of peering beyond the veil of illusion, shone with an inner light as he spoke. "This blessing comes to you, O noble king, because you prioritize duty over convenience, kindness to the wise and aged, and because your ancestors were rich not only in lands but in virtue." Pausing, as if attuning to ethereal whispers, he continued, "A divine voice reached me on the wind, proclaiming a son born to the Shakya king, one who will possess true knowledge, unraveling mysteries sought through endless lifetimes." Overjoyed yet curious, Suddhodana fetched the infant from his nurse's arms, presenting him to Asita with the reverence of offering a priceless gem. The hermit gazed upon Siddhartha, discerning the subtle marks foretold in ancient texts, the physical signs of one destined for Buddhahood. For moments that stretched into eternity, Asita's heart expanded with profound joy, envisioning the healing this child would bring to a suffering world. Then, to the assembly's astonishment, tears cascaded down his weathered cheeks, a deep sigh escaping as he lifted his eyes skyward, seeking solace from the heavens. Suddhodana's heart constricted with fear at this sight. "Venerable one," he implored, voice taut with paternal dread, "you speak of divinity's marks and supreme glory, yet tears fill your eyes. Is my son's life fragile? Will he bring sorrow, withering before blooming? Speak, for a father's love cannot bear uncertainty." Asita, eyes brimming with compassion, reassured, "Grieve not, O king, your words hold truth, and glory awaits. My tears are for myself, as my life nears its close, missing the one who will shatter endless rebirth and suffering. To wanderers lost in existence's forest, he will reveal salvation's path. I, despite lifetimes of austerity and meditation, will never hear his voice proclaiming freedom's law. Even heavenly realms are pitiable without his teachings." These words stirred complex emotions in Suddhodana. Relief that his son would thrive, yet unease at the prophecy of renunciation, fearing the Shakya line's end. But such worries proved fleeting amid the kingdom's surging fortune, as if Siddhartha's birth had unlocked endless prosperity. As the prince matured under Mahaprajapati's care, the king observed his son's extraordinary evolution with mingled awe and apprehension. He resolved to envelop Siddhartha in unceasing delight, reasoning that immersion in life's joys might awaken desires for worldly continuity, ensuring heirs to the throne. When Siddhartha reached the age where young men contemplate unions and legacies, Suddhodana summoned him to the palace garden for a private council. "My child," he began, voice laced with hopeful tenderness, "you are of an age to consider a wife. If a maiden from noble houses pleases you, speak, and I shall arrange it." Siddhartha's reply, thoughtful and unexpected, echoed the hermit's omen. "Father, I do not seek women's company actively. My path seems to lie in forest solitude, meditating for elusive peace." Yet, pausing, he reflected, "History shows wise men who balanced household duties with enlightenment, like lotuses thriving amid mud. Perhaps I can emulate them. Grant me 7 days to ponder." In that week, Siddhartha contemplated deeply, envisioning a partner of rare merit, beautiful yet humble, affectionate as a sister, tender as a mother to all creatures, pure in body, speech, and thought, choosing virtue over temptation. Returning, he declared, "If I marry, she must embody these qualities, regardless of rank or wealth, virtue, wisdom, and compassion above all." Daunted yet impressed, Suddhodana tasked his household priest with scouting the lands, enumerating the prince's ideals. "Seek one possessing most of these, character over convenience." The priest journeyed tirelessly, encountering maidens of varied graces, but none fully matching, until reaching Dandapani's home. There, his daughter Gopa shone with beauty, wisdom, and compassion that amazed him. Her responses revealed mature acceptance of life's trials, kindness without condescension, and profound purpose. Elated, the priest reported, "I have found her, worthy in every way." Thus, the stage set for Siddhartha's union, the king's protective illusions deepened, veiling the awakening that destiny inexorably approached, marriage to Gopa, and the illusion of eternal joy. The priest's quest for a bride worthy of Prince Siddhartha had traversed the noble houses of Kapilavastu and beyond, a meticulous search guided by the prince's exacting ideals of virtue over vanity, compassion over convenience. Many maidens possessed fragments of the desired qualities, beauty in one, intelligence in another, kindness in yet a third, but none combined them into the harmonious whole Siddhartha envisioned. Despair began to shadow the priest's efforts until fate led him to the home of Dandapani, a respected Shakya clansman whose life exemplified honor and dignity. There, he encountered Gopa, Dandapani's daughter, and in that moment, recognition dawned like sunlight-piercing morning mist. Gopa was not merely beautiful. Her grace emanated from an inner serenity that elevated those around her, her eyes reflecting both profound intelligence and boundless compassion. Her presence instilled hope, a subtle alchemy that transformed ordinary interactions into moments of upliftment. Engaging her in conversation, the priest posed questions designed to unveil character, probing life's challenges and the essence of human purpose. Gopa's responses astonished him. She spoke of difficulties not with naive optimism, but with mature acceptance, finding meaning in adversity without bitterness. Her views on others flowed from genuine empathy, free of condescension, and her reflections on existence revealed a depth rare in one so young. Here was a woman whose merit aligned perfectly with Siddhartha's criteria, pure in thought, speech, and action, her heart naturally inclined toward universal kindness. Excitement propelled the priest back to King Suddhodana, where he declared, "My lord, I have discovered a maiden truly befitting your son. In all my journeys, none rivals her blend of beauty, wisdom, grace, and virtue." The king, hope rekindled, inquired, "Where resides this paragon?" Upon learning she was Dandapani's daughter, he concurred with the priest's caution, "Though I trust your judgment, let the prince observe her himself to confirm." To facilitate this, Suddhodana commissioned exquisite jewels from master craftsmen, ornaments of gold and silver fit for royal tribute. A herald proclaimed throughout the city, "In 7 days, Prince Siddhartha will bestow gifts upon all unmarried maidens of Kapilavastu. Let them assemble at the palace to receive tokens of the royal family's esteem for their grace and beauty." The appointed day transformed the palace hall into a vision of celestial splendor, adorned with flowers and silks that evoked divine courts. Siddhartha, ascended a specially prepared throne, poised to distribute the jewels. One by one, the young women approached, each receiving a carefully selected gem. Yet, an unforeseen phenomenon unfolded. Overwhelmed by the prince's radiant presence, his beauty, dignity, and an intangible aura that inspired awe, they averted their gazes, some lowering eyes to the floor, others hastening away in shyness. It was as if Siddhartha's essence shone too brightly for ordinary sight, evoking reverence mingled with timidity. Gopa entered last, her arrival subtly shifting the hall's atmosphere. She advanced with natural confidence, neither arrogant nor hesitant, as if greeting a familiar soul rather than a stranger prince. Reaching the dais, she met Siddhartha's eyes directly, unflinching and composed, her poise a stark contrast to the others. As Siddhartha reached for the final jewel, he discovered the box empty. His attentiveness to each recipient had depleted the supply. Tension thickened the air. The assembly sensed the awkwardness of honoring this exceptional woman with nothing. Gopa smiled, her expression like dawn illuminating shadowed peaks. "Prince," she said, her voice melodic and inviting, "in what manner have I offended that you distinguish me thus?" Siddhartha, his tone warming in a way observers noted as unprecedented, replied, "No offense is yours. You are last, and no jewel remains." Recalling his own ring, a masterpiece of craftsmanship and value, he removed it without pause. "This was mine. Now I offer it to you." Yet Gopa demurred, her eyes perceiving depths in him perhaps unspoken. "Must I accept what belongs to you? Rather, it should be I who gifts you, for what could equal your inherent worth?" With these words, she departed, leaving Siddhartha holding the ring, a profound shift stirring within him, the mysterious recognition of souls across veils of separation. Hearing the account, Suddhodana's heart soared. "Gopa alone faced my son undaunted. Her strength and wisdom match his. She who refused his ring shall be his greatest treasure." The ensuing marriage united two souls in perfect synergy, celebrated across Kapilavastu as a convergence of wisdom, beauty, and purpose. Siddhartha and Gopa's love radiated outward, illuminating all witnesses like a lamp dispelling darkness. In time, Gopa bore a son, Rahula, meaning chain, or bond, a name prophetic in ways then unforeseen. Suddhodana rejoiced in his grandson as in his son, his virtuous path resembling a hermit's despite royal duties. Yet, beneath satisfaction, he fortified his resolve to immerse Siddhartha in pleasures, ensuring no void tempted renunciation. The prince dwelt in 3 opulent palaces, one for winter's chill, one for summer's heat, one for rainy seclusion, each an architectural marvel, furnished to delight senses and soothe the body. White as clouds, bright as divine chariots, these abodes offered every conceivable joy. Days filled with refined pursuits, music from Gopa and her companions, skillful enough to captivate gods, gardens of perpetual bloom, air perfumed with contentment, finest cuisines, exquisite art, stimulating discourse, and loving company. Siddhartha appreciated these bounties, the wife's joy, son's promise, surrounding affection, but within stirred an indefinable longing, a whisper in quiet moments, urging beyond palace confines. Not ingratitude or restlessness, but a soul's awakening call, unsatisfied by external perfection. In Zen teachings, even in paradise, the heart knows when it lives in a cage, resonates rejecting not love or beauty, but recognizing no arrangement suffices for profound peace. Suddhodana's protective love, though well-intentioned, crafted a barrier to growth, for awakening demands direct encounter with reality's complexities. Siddhartha's golden existence, cushioned from hardship, bred subtle discontent, a seed destined to sprout into questing. Resistance in protection fosters what it fears. The soul seeking truth navigates any walls. As spring's vibrancy beckoned, descriptions of external beauty, meadows, tender green, bird songs, lotuses unfolding ignited Siddhartha's longing, like a caged elephant scenting wild forests. Requesting to venture out, he unwittingly set destiny's wheel turning, Suddhodana's anxious preparations foreshadowing the illusion's inevitable shatter. Eternal joy's facade, meticulously maintained, concealed life's impermanence, priming the prince for transformative encounters with suffering's truths, encounters with old age, sickness, and death. As spring adorned the world in vibrant renewal, painting meadows in tender greens and filling the air with birdsong and lotus blooms, a casual conversation in the palace sparked an unforeseen longing in Prince Siddhartha. Someone described the countryside's splendor, grass awakening from winter, lovers strolling gardens, festivals celebrating life's joy, evoking in him a deep desire to venture beyond his sheltered existence. Like an elephant in a luxurious stable suddenly scenting the wild forest, Siddhartha felt compelled to explore this broader world. He requested permission to leave the palace, unaware that this simple wish would shatter the illusion of eternal bliss his father had so meticulously constructed. King Suddhodana, upon learning of his son's request, felt a surge of anxiety, recognizing the inevitability of this moment, yet fearing it would awaken the prophetic renunciation. Determined to protect Siddhartha's serenity, he orchestrated a curated glimpse of the kingdom, streets festooned with garlands and banners, transforming the route into a paradisiacal pathway. A golden chariot, pulled by bronze-coated horses in gilded harnesses, was prepared. Strict orders ensured no signs of suffering appeared. The elderly, sick, and beggars hidden away compensated to remain out of sight. Only the young, healthy, and prosperous lined the streets. Tearfully embracing his son, the king whispered, "Go," though his heart yearned to hold him safe forever. The procession began magnificently, Chandaka guiding the chariot through adoring crowds who praised Siddhartha's kindness, dignity, beauty, and vitality. The prince's heart swelled with delight at his people's contentment and the springtime beauty, feeling connected to life beyond walls for the first time. Yet, destiny intervened. The gods, sensing Siddhartha's readiness for awakening, manifested an old man on his path, piercing the illusion. Bent on a staff, decrepit and trembling, veins bulging, teeth chattering, wrinkled skin, sparse grey hair, lashless eyes, this figure embodied time's ravages, impossible to ignore. Siddhartha, stricken, questioned Chandaka, "What is this? Grey hair, bent body, shaking limbs. Is he a monster or accident's victim?" Compelled by divine influence, Chandaka revealed, "This is old age, destroyer of beauty, vigor, memory, and senses. He was once a nursing infant, playful child, strong youth, but time eroded him relentlessly. It spares no one, rich or poor. wise or foolish. The prince trembled, sighing deeply. "Will this befall me?" Chandaka affirmed. "Youth fades for all. Old age halts strength and steals beauty." Shuddering, Siddhartha observed the oblivious crowds. How do they delight in gardens when this awaits? Turn back. Joy eludes me now. Returning in silence, he wandered chambers murmuring old age, his peace shattered, beginning to resist impermanence's truth. The king noticed his son's distress. Learning of the encounter, his plans foiled. Hoping another outing might restore spirits, he issued stricter precautions. Siddhartha, seeking distraction, ventured again. But the gods manifested a diseased man, swollen belly, limp arms, pallid face, gasping cries, staggering then collapsing in agony. Horrified, Siddhartha asked, "What afflicts him? Swollen stomach, weak arms, painful breaths?" Chandaka explained. "Sickness invades like an enemy. He was once healthy, but disease distinguishes none." Siddhartha probed, "Is this unique, or threatens all, even me, my family?" Chandaka confirmed, "All are vulnerable. Sickness storms without warning." Trembling like disturbed moonlight, Siddhartha despaired. People witness this, yet retain confidence, laughing as if wise or blind. "Turn back. I fear sickness. My soul shuns pleasure." Darker thoughts consumed him upon return, the king punishing an official bewildered, for the manifestations were visible only to prince and charioteer. Surrounding Siddhartha with entertainments proved futile. Innocence lost, distractions failed. Every ending birthed a beginning, his protected youth waning, transformation dawning. Desperate, Suddhodana arranged a third excursion with utmost vigilance, replacing Chandaka. But the gods completed the lesson, manifesting a corpse on a stretcher, followed by weeping mourners. Siddhartha, heart-stopping, queried, "What is this lifeless form, intelligence and breath gone, mourners grieving?" The charioteer revealed, "This is death. He sleeps eternally, beyond pleasure or pain." The finality crushed Siddhartha, pattern clear. Life led inexorably to end. These encounters unveiled existence's core truths: aging's decay, sickness's torment, death's finality shattering the paradise illusion. Siddhartha, once content in luxury, now confronted universal suffering, the catalyst for his quest. The gods' interventions ensured awakening, teaching that reality breaks through protections and unfaced truths hinder healing. The prince's resistance birthed deeper suffering, yet seeded the wisdom to transcend it. In Zen, impermanence isn't the issue, fighting it is. Siddhartha's shocks initiated this realization, propelling him toward renunciation and truth. Renunciation and the quest for truth. The decision to leave the palace. The encounters with old age, sickness, and death had pierced the veil of Prince Siddhartha's protected existence, revealing the fragile impermanence underlying all worldly joys. No longer could he find solace in the opulent palaces his father had built, where every comfort was designed to distract from life's harsher truths. The golden chariot rides, meant to showcase the kingdom's beauty, had instead exposed him to the universal sufferings that afflicted every being, regardless of status or wealth. These visions haunted his thoughts, turning the once delightful gardens and melodies into mocking reminders of transience. Siddhartha wandered the halls in restless contemplation, his mind a whirlwind of questions that no amount of luxury could silence. If aging eroded strength, sickness ravaged health, and death claimed all, what purpose did a life of pleasure serve? The illusion of eternal joy, so carefully curated by King Suddhodana, began to crumble, replaced by a profound disquiet that urged the prince toward a deeper search for meaning. In the quiet hours of night, when the palace slept under starlit skies, Siddhartha reflected on the futility of his sheltered life. He had married Gopa, fathered Rahula, and fulfilled the expectations of royalty. Yet these bonds now felt like chains binding him to a cycle of inevitable loss. The name Rahula, meaning fetter or bond, took on ironic weight, symbolizing the attachments that, while born of love, perpetuated suffering in a world governed by change. Siddhartha's heart ached not from ingratitude, but from awakening compassion for his family, his people, and all beings trapped in the same delusions. He pondered the hermit's prophecy and the Brahmin's words at his birth, sensing that his destiny lay not in ruling a kingdom, but in conquering the inner realms where suffering originated. The decision to renounce palace life germinated in these moments, a resolve forged from the pain of realization to find a path beyond decay and death. He must leave behind the very comforts that blinded him to truth. King Suddhodana, observing his son's growing detachment, redoubled efforts to anchor him in worldly delights. Musicians played enchanting tunes, dancers performed with ethereal grace, and feasts overflowed with delicacies, all orchestrated to reignite Siddhartha's attachment to sensory pleasures. Yet, these diversions only deepened the prince's introspection. In Zen, wisdom echoed through his thoughts. What we resist persists, and his resistance to impermanence had birthed a suffering that external joys could not heal. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of farewell, Siddhartha confided in Chandaka, his trusted charioteer, the turmoil within. "The sights I beheld have shattered my peace," he admitted. "Old age bends the strong, sickness fells the healthy, death silences the living. How can one find lasting joy amid such certainties?" Chandaka, bound by loyalty, offered no easy answers, but his presence affirmed the prince's growing conviction. The palace was a cage, beautiful yet confining, and freedom lay in facing life's realities unshielded. The turning point came during a solitary walk in the palace gardens, where flowers bloomed eternally, defying the seasons. Siddhartha now knew claimed all things. A profound vision, or inner voice, perhaps the culmination of his reflections, whispered of a greater purpose: to seek the deathless state where suffering ceased. He recalled Asita's tears, the dream elephant's descent, and Maya's serene passing, piecing together that his birth was no accident, but a call to liberate all from rebirth's torment. Renunciation, once a distant prophecy, now felt imperative. If I remain here, he reasoned, I perpetuate the illusion for myself and others. But by leaving, I might discover the way to end this endless cycle. Compassion swelled for Gopa and Rahula, yet he understood that true love meant seeking truth that could benefit them and all beings, not clinging to transient bonds. As resolve solidified, Siddhartha planned his departure with quiet determination. He chose the cover of night, when the palace slumbered, to minimize pain for his loved ones. Summoning Chandaka once more, he shared his intent. Prepare my horse Kanthaka, for tonight I leave this life of illusion." Chandaka, torn between duty to the king and admiration for the prince's quest, protested gently, fearing the king's heartbreak. But Siddhartha's eyes held unshakable clarity. "The suffering I have witnessed is universal. My staying changes nothing, but my seeking might change everything." The charioteer, moved by such wisdom, acquiesced, recognizing the prince's path as divinely ordained. In the final hours before departure, Siddhartha visited his sleeping family one last time, gazing upon Gopa's peaceful form and Rahula's innocent face. His heart wavered with human tenderness. Tears welled as he contemplated the bonds he would sever, yet a deeper love prevailed, the aspiration to free them from suffering's grasp. "This chain must break for the greater good," he whispered, bestowing silent blessings. Emerging into the night, he mounted Kanthaka, the horse's hooves muffled by celestial intervention, as gods parted palace gates without a sound. Chandaka accompanied him to the city's edge, where Siddhartha bid farewell. "Return and tell my father, I seek not escape, but the end of all escapes." Crossing the river marking the kingdom's boundary, Siddhartha paused at dawn's first light. With a sword, he severed his royal locks, symbolizing detachment from worldly identity, casting them skyward as an offering. His princely robes exchanged for a simple hermit's garb from a passing hunter, another divine orchestration. He embraced the wanderer's life fully. The decision to leave, born from encounters with suffering, marked the renunciation's dawn, a pivotal act of courage that propelled him into the unknown. In leaving paradise, Siddhartha stepped toward enlightenment, teaching that true freedom arises not from possession but release, not from avoidance but confrontation. This act reverberated through the palace upon discovery. Suddhodana's grief was profound, a father's love clashing with prophetic fulfillment. Searches yielded no return, for Siddhartha had vanished into forests of seeking. Yet, in his absence, the seeds of transformation were sown, his journey a beacon for all who questioned life's illusions. The decision to leave was no rejection but an embrace of truth over comfort, compassion over attachment, setting the stage for discoveries that would illuminate humanity's path. Farewell to family and the path into the unknown. The weight of Siddhartha's decision to renounce his royal life settled upon him like the quiet of a moonless night, a resolve born not from despair, but from an unquenchable thirst for the truth that could end all suffering. Having glimpsed the inexorable truths of old age, sickness, and death during his chariot excursions, the prince could no longer abide the palace's illusions of permanence. Every luxury, every affectionate glance from Gopa, every innocent coo from Rahula now amplified the impermanence he had witnessed, turning bonds of love into poignant reminders of inevitable loss. In the stillness of his chambers, as the kingdom slumbered under a canopy of stars, Siddhartha contemplated the profound sacrifice ahead. To seek the deathless state, a realm beyond decay and rebirth, he must sever ties with the very world that had cradled him in comfort. Yet, compassion for his family tempered his determination. He yearned not to abandon them in cruelty, but to discover a wisdom that might one day liberate them from the same cycles that tormented all beings. As dawn's first whispers approached, Siddhartha summoned Chandaka, his faithful charioteer, whose loyalty had been tested during the revelatory journeys. "Prepare Kanthaka, my noble steed," the prince instructed, his voice steady yet laced with solemnity. "Tonight, I depart this palace of shadows for the light of truth." Chandaka's eyes widened in shock, his heart torn between obedience to the prince and fidelity to the king. "My lord," he pleaded, "consider your father, whose love built these walls to shield you, your wife, whose devotion mirrors the stars' constancy, your son, whose future rests upon your throne. The kingdom will grieve your absence as a garden laments the sun's eclipse." Siddhartha, eyes reflecting infinite compassion, replied, "It is because of them, because of all who suffer, that I must go. Staying here chains me to illusion. Leaving may unlock the door to freedom for every soul. Tell them not of abandonment, but of a quest for the end of sorrow." With heavy heart, Chandaka readied Kanthaka, the horse's coat gleaming like polished ivory under the torchlight, sensing the gravity of the moment. As the palace lay in deep repose, Siddhartha stole into the chambers where Gopa and Rahula slept. The room was bathed in soft moonlight filtering through latticed windows, casting ethereal patterns on the silken bedding. Gopa lay serene, her face a portrait of peaceful beauty, her breath rhythmic as a gentle stream. Beside her, infant Rahula slumbered, his tiny fists curled in innocent trust, embodying the pure potential of life, unmarred by knowledge of its pains. Siddhartha's heart constricted with a love so deep it threatened to sway his resolve. He approached silently, his footsteps muffled by the plush carpets, and gazed upon them with eyes brimming with unspoken farewell. Tears traced silent paths down his cheeks as memories flooded him. Gopa's unwavering gaze during their first meeting, her wisdom that had matched his own, their shared joys in the gardens where flowers bloomed eternally. Rahula, the bond whose arrival had brought such paternal pride, now symbolized the attachments Siddhartha must transcend. "Forgive me, beloved," he whispered, his voice a mere breath to avoid waking them. "This parting wounds me as deeply as it will you, but the suffering I have seen demands I seek its cure. May the merits of my journey shield you from harm." He extended a trembling hand, hovering just above Gopa's forehead in a final blessing, then over Rahula's form, imparting silent vows of protection. In that moment, the prince understood the paradox of love. To truly cherish them, he must release his grasp, allowing destiny to unfold beyond personal desires. Turning away, Siddhartha felt the finality of his choice, each step toward the door echoing like a heartbeat bidding adieu to his former self. Outside, Chandaka waited, with Kanthaka saddled, the horse pawing the ground as if intuiting the sacred journey ahead. The gods, ever watchful over the one destined for awakening, intervened subtly. Palace gates swung open without creak or clamor, guards slumbered, undisturbed, and even the night winds hushed to cloak their passage. Mounting Kanthaka, Siddhartha cast one last glance at the gleaming towers of Kapilavastu, symbols of the life he relinquished. "Ride with me to the city's edge," he told Chandaka, "then return with tidings of my path. Tell my father I go not in rejection, but in pursuit of the eternal." The ride through sleeping streets was swift and silent, Kanthaka's hooves barely whispering against the earth, as if borne by celestial forces. At the boundary river, Siddhartha dismounted, embracing Chandaka in farewell. "You have been more than a servant, a companion in revelation," he said. "Convey to all that my heart remains with them, but my spirit seeks the wisdom to heal the world's wounds." Chandaka, tears streaming, bowed deeply, "May your quest succeed, my prince. The kingdom's hope rides with you." As the charioteer departed, Siddhartha crossed the waters, symbolizing his transition from royalty to renunciation. Dawn broke as he ventured into the unknown, the sun's rays gilding the forests ahead like a promise of illumination. In a clearing, Siddhartha drew his sword, severing his royal topknot, a cascade of dark locks falling as an offering to the winds. "Thus I cut ties with worldly vanity," he declared, the act liberating as shedding heavy armor. A passing hunter, guided by divine hand, exchanged his simple robes for the prince's finery, completing the transformation into a wandering ascetic, clad in coarse cloth, staff in hand. Siddhartha stepped into the pathless woods, where no maps charted the journey inward. The unknown unfolded as dense forests and meandering rivers, but Siddhartha's steps were purposeful, driven by an inner compass toward teachers rumored to hold keys to transcendence. Villages whispered of sages in distant groves, and the prince, now a humble seeker, pressed on without regret. Hunger and fatigue tested him, yet these were mere preludes to the austerities ahead. In solitude, he meditated under ancient trees, pondering the sufferings that propelled him forth. The palace was a dream, he reflected, beautiful yet fleeting. Reality awaits in the heart's depths. Back in Kapilavastu, dawn revealed the absence. Empty chambers, vanished prince. Suddhodana's anguish echoed through halls, a king's roar of loss mingling with paternal heartbreak. Gopa, awakening to solitude, clutched Rahula, her wisdom intuiting the quest's necessity even as tears fell. Searches scoured the lands, but Siddhartha had dissolved into the seeker's anonymity. The farewell, though unspoken, resonated as a testament to love's highest form release for the greater good. Into the unknown he ventured, the path winding toward encounters that would shape his enlightenment, a solitary figure embodying humanity's eternal quest for freedom from suffering's grasp. Meeting the first teachers and initial practices. Having severed ties with his royal past, Siddhartha ventured deeper into the forests and plains of ancient India, his steps guided by an inner calling toward those who might illuminate the path to ending suffering. The unknown terrain, once daunting, now felt like a welcoming expanse where truth could unfold away from palace distractions. Clad in simple robes, with only a begging bowl and staff, he embodied the wandering ascetic's life, relying on villagers' alms for sustenance and the shade of trees for rest. Whispers of renowned sages reached him through travelers and hermits, men who had delved into meditation's depths, claiming mastery over mind and existence. Driven by compassion for all beings ensnared in aging, sickness and death, Siddhartha sought these teachers, hoping their wisdom might reveal the deathless state he yearned for. His journey was no aimless wander, but a deliberate quest, each encounter a step toward understanding the root of human torment. The first significant teacher Siddhartha encountered was Alara Kalama, a revered guru dwelling in a serene grove near the bustling town of Vesali. Alara was known throughout the region for his profound meditative attainments, attracting disciples eager to transcend worldly illusions. Approaching with humility, Siddhartha introduced himself not as a former prince, but as a sincere seeker, fleeing life's impermanence. Alara, sensing the young man's earnestness, welcomed him into his community, where ascetics practiced rigorous disciplines under banyan trees, their days structured around contemplation and discourse. "What do you seek?" Alara inquired, his voice calm as a still pond. Siddhartha replied, "Master, I have seen suffering's universality, bodies decay, illnesses strike, death claims all. I seek the way beyond this cycle, a peace untouched by change." Impressed by Siddhartha's clarity, Alara began instructing him in the art of meditation, emphasizing concentration to achieve higher states of consciousness. The initial practices focused on breath awareness, calming the mind's restless waves to foster one-pointed focus. Siddhartha, with his innate discipline honed from palace reflections, progressed swiftly. Under Alara's guidance, he learned to enter the first jhana, a meditative absorption marked by initial rapture and sustained thought, where sensory distractions faded into bliss. Days blurred into weeks as Siddhartha sat in lotus posture, observing thoughts arise and dissolve like clouds in a vast sky. Alara taught, "The mind is like a monkey swinging from branch to branch. Tame it through vigilance, and realms beyond ordinary perception open." Advancing further, Siddhartha mastered the second jhana, transcending discursive thought into pure joy and unified awareness. Then the third, where joy gave way to equanimity and contentment. Alara marveled at his pupil's aptitude, declaring, "You have equaled my attainments in the sphere of nothingness, the seventh jhana, where consciousness perceives boundless void, free from form or sensation." In this state, Siddhartha experienced profound stillness, as if merging with infinite emptiness, untouched by worldly concerns. Yet, upon emerging, a subtle dissatisfaction lingered. "Master," he questioned, "does this nothingness end suffering permanently, or is it temporary, dependent on meditation?" Alara confessed, "It brings peace, but upon leaving, the world returns with its pains. I know no further." Recognizing this as not the ultimate liberation, since it failed to eradicate ignorance's root, Siddhartha expressed gratitude and departed, his quest unfulfilled but enriched. "You are welcome to stay and teach beside me," Alara offered, but Siddhartha declined. "I must seek what lies beyond, for all beings' sake." Journeying southward, he soon heard of Uddaka Ramaputta, another esteemed sage residing in a forested ashram near Rajagaha, whose teachings extended even further into subtle realms. Uddaka's disciples practiced advanced samadhi, aiming for states transcending Alara's nothingness. Approaching with the same humility, Siddhartha was accepted, his prior training evident in his composed demeanor. Uddaka's initial practices built upon breath control and visualization, guiding students to dissolve gross perceptions into finer ones. Siddhartha immersed himself, achieving the sphere of neither perception nor non-perception, the eighth jhana, a realm so subtle that awareness hovered between existence and non-existence, like a faint whisper in silence. Here, consciousness refined to its utmost, free from coarse distractions, offering a peace deeper than any palace comfort. Uddaka praised, "You have surpassed many, equaling my mastery in this boundless subtlety." In this state, Siddhartha felt an expansive calm, as if the universe's fabric unraveled into pure potentiality. Yet, again, emergence brought realization. This too was conditioned, impermanent, reliant on meditative effort. Suffering's causes craving, ignorance remained unaddressed, resurfacing with worldly engagement. "Is there a way to uproot suffering entirely?" Siddhartha asked. Uddaka admitted, "This is the pinnacle I know. Beyond lies mystery." Thanking his teacher, Siddhartha departed, honoring the insights gained, but resolute in pursuing complete awakening. These meetings underscored a vital lesson. High meditative states offered respite, but not eradication of suffering's source. As Zen later echoes, true peace arises not from escaping reality, but understanding it profoundly. Wandering further, Siddhartha arrived at Uruvela, a verdant area by the Niranjana River, drawn by its natural sanctity, clear waters, ancient trees, and a palpable spiritual energy. Here, he encountered 5 ascetics: Kondana, Vapa, Badiya, Mahanama, and Asaji fellow seekers, practicing extreme self-denial to purify the soul. Impressed by Siddhartha's aura, they invited him to join, sharing their belief, "Through mortifying the flesh, we transcend desires that bind us to rebirth." Intrigued, Siddhartha adopted their initial practices: fasting to minimal sustenance, exposure to elements without shelter, and prolonged stillness amid discomforts, like insect bites or harsh weather. His body adapted rigorously. He sat motionless for days, breath shallow, mind probing suffering's depths. Villagers occasionally offered food, but he accepted sparingly, testing limits. These practices sharpened awareness, revealing how attachments fueled pain. Yet Siddhartha sensed extremes might obscure rather than clarify. Still, he persisted, building camaraderie with the 5, who admired his endurance. "You endure as one born for greatness," Kondana noted. Through discourses, they explored karma, rebirth, and liberation, Siddhartha's insights enriching their understanding. Initial results manifested heightened clarity, visions of past lives flickering in meditation, and a detachment from physical needs. Yet, as emaciation set in, ribs protruding, limbs gaunt, Siddhartha questioned, "Does weakening the body strengthen the spirit or hinder it?" This phase marked his entry into asceticism, a bridge from intellectual seeking to embodied trial, setting the foundation for realizing the middle way. The river's flow mirrored his journey, persistent, adapting toward enlightenment's ocean. In meeting these teachers and embracing practices, Siddhartha gathered tools, each a step closer to the Bodhi tree's shade, where ultimate truth awaited, deepening meditation and spiritual exploration. Having parted from his second teacher, Uddaka Ramaputta, Siddhartha continued his solitary wanderings through the landscapes of ancient India, his mind a fertile ground where the seeds of earlier insights began to take deeper root. The meditative states he had mastered the spheres of nothingness, and neither perception nor non-perception offered profound glimpses into consciousness's subtleties. Yet they proved transient, unable to uproot the fundamental causes of suffering, ignorance, craving, and attachment. These realizations fueled his determination, transforming each step into an act of spiritual exploration. No longer content with borrowed wisdom, Siddhartha delved inward, experimenting with techniques to probe the mind's depths and uncover the mechanisms of existence. The forests and riverbanks became his silent mentors, where nature's rhythms mirrored the ebb and flow of thoughts, teaching him that true understanding arose from direct experience rather than doctrinal adherence. Drawn by an intuitive pull, Siddhartha arrived at the serene environs of Uruvela, a lush area nestled along the Niranjana River. where ancient trees formed natural canopies for contemplation, and the water's gentle flow symbolized life's impermanent stream. Here, the air hummed with a spiritual vitality that resonated with his quest, as if the land itself had been awaiting a seeker of his caliber. Settling in a secluded grove, he intensified his meditation practices, building upon the concentration skills acquired from Alara and Udaka. Mornings began at dawn, with Siddhartha assuming the lotus posture beneath a spreading fig tree, focusing on the breath's subtle movements to anchor the mind. He explored Vipassana-like insights, observing sensations arise and pass: heat, cold, itch, pain, not as enemies but as transient phenomena, revealing impermanence's law. All things change, he reflected during these sessions, and clinging to them births sorrow. Release lies in seeing clearly. As days extended into weeks, Siddhartha deepened his exploration by incorporating elements of self-inquiry, questioning the nature of the self. Who experiences this suffering? What is the I that ages, sickens, dies? These inquiries led to profound absorptions, where boundaries between observer and observed blurred, consciousness expanding like ripples in the river. He experimented with walking meditation, pacing mindfully along the riverbank, synchronizing steps with breath to cultivate unbroken awareness amid motion. This practice revealed how habitual patterns, desires, surfacing like sudden currents, perpetuated rebirth cycle. Evenings brought reflective contemplation, where he analyzed daily experiences, tracing emotions back to their roots in ignorance. The document's essence echoed in his pursuits, stopping the fight against life, flowing with it, as the ancient wisdom worked subconsciously. Siddhartha's spiritual exploration extended beyond solitary practice. He engaged sporadically with wandering ascetics and villagers, gleaning diverse perspectives on liberation. One encounter with a group of yogis introduced pranayama breath control exercises to purify energy channels, which he integrated, noting heightened clarity but recognizing it as preparatory, not ultimate. Another dialogue with a philosopher emphasized ethical conduct as meditation's foundation, prompting Siddhartha to vow non-harm, truthfulness, and simplicity, aligning actions with inner purity. These interactions enriched his approach, blending introspection with worldly wisdom, yet he remained discerning, testing each method against suffering's litmus. Did it eradicate craving's root, or merely suppress it temporarily? As exploration intensified, Siddhartha gravitated toward ascetic disciplines, influenced by the era's prevailing belief that mortifying the body subdued desires. Joining the 5 ascetics Kondana and his companions in their rigorous regimen, he explored extreme practices to deepen spiritual insight. They meditated unsheltered, exposing themselves to sun's blaze, rain's torrent, and wind's bite, viewing discomfort as a forge for equanimity. Siddhartha embraced this, sitting motionless for hours, allowing insects to crawl undisturbed, serpents to slither nearby, training the mind to remain undisturbed amid adversity. Pain is a teacher, he observed, revealing attachment's grip. Non-resistance transforms it. Dietary exploration pushed boundaries, reducing intake to a single rice grain daily or sesame seeds for weeks. Siddhartha monitored how deprivation sharpened focus while testing physical limits. his body transformed emaciated frame with protruding bones, ribs like cage bars, limbs skeletal, yet his eyes burned with inner fire, consciousness delving into uncharted territories. During these states, visions arose, past lives flashing like river reflections, karmic threads weaving through existences, reinforcing rebirth's endless torment. He explored altered states, inducing trances where time dissolved, perceiving the universe's interconnected web, every action rippling eternally. Village encounters added layers, children and shepherds passing by, sometimes jeered or pelted mud, but Siddhartha remained oblivious, absorbed in contemplation. These trials deepened empathy, understanding how ignorance bred cruelty, fueling his resolve to find universal salvation. Women from nearby Uruvela, moved by his dedication, offered grains and fruits, which he initially declined but later pondered as potential balance. Yet, for now, exploration demanded extremes, pushing toward realization's edge. Amidst this, doubts surfaced. Does such denial lead to awakening or merely exhaust the vessel? Physical weakness occasionally clouded clarity, hinting at imbalance. Still, Siddhartha persisted, exploring mindfulness in every act, eating, walking, breathing as continuous meditation. He delved into dependent origination, intuitively grasping how ignorance birthed formations, consciousness, name and form, leading to suffering's chain. These insights, though partial, illuminated the path, preparing for the middle way's dawn. 6 years in Uruvela marked profound growth. From structured jhanas to free-form exploration, Siddhartha's practice evolved, integrating concentration with insight. The river's flow became a metaphor, neither forcing nor yielding blindly, but observing with wisdom. Spiritual exploration revealed meditation's power to unveil reality, yet extreme's limitations loomed. As body weakened, mind sharpened, setting the stage for pivotal realization, truth demanded harmony, not opposition. In this deepening, Siddhartha inched toward enlightenment, his journey a testament to persistent inquiry amid hardship. The 5 ascetics and extreme austerities. In the verdant expanse of Uruvela, where the Nairanjana river wound like a silver thread through ancient groves, Siddhartha found companionship among 5 dedicated ascetics whose pursuit of liberation mirrored his own relentless quest. These men, Kondana, Vapa, Bhadia, Mahanama, and Asaji, had established a simple hermitage amid the trees, drawn together by a shared conviction that severe self-denial could purify the soul and shatter the chains of desire binding beings to endless rebirth. Siddhartha, having exhausted the meditative heights offered by Alara Kalama and Udaka Ramaputta, recognized in their austere lifestyle a new avenue for exploration. Their practices promised to conquer the body's cravings through rigorous mortification, potentially unveiling the root of suffering he sought to eradicate. Approaching with the humility of a true seeker, Siddhartha joined their circle, his presence immediately commanding respect. The ascetics, sensing his profound sincerity and the subtle aura of destiny about him, welcomed him as an equal, sharing their meager provisions and philosophical insights under the canopy of leaves that filtered sunlight into dappled patterns of contemplation. The initial days with the 5 ascetics immersed Siddhartha in a regimen of discipline that tested the limits of human endurance. building upon the meditative foundations he had already established. They began with communal meditations at dawn, sitting in unyielding postures, as the river's murmur provided a natural mantra for focus. Kondana, the eldest and most experienced, guided discussions on the nature of attachment, emphasizing how sensory indulgences fueled the cycle of birth, aging, sickness, and death. The body is a vessel of illusion, he taught, and only by subjugating its demands can the mind ascend to truth. Siddhartha, drawing from his palace renunciations and teacher encounters, contributed reflections on impermanence, noting how even exalted jhanas proved temporary. Together, they explored breathing exercises to minimize vital energy expenditure, aiming to transcend physical needs entirely. These early practices fostered a bond of mutual respect, the group meditating in silence for hours, observing thoughts dissolve into the void. As Siddhartha integrated deeper, the ascetics introduced him to their core austerities, extreme measures designed to forge unbreakable equanimity. They eschewed all shelter, exposing themselves to the elements without complaint. Scorching sun by day that blistered skin, chilling rains that soaked to the bone, and biting winds that tested resolve through the night. Siddhartha embraced this fully, positioning himself in open clearings where weather's fury could assault unimpeded. Let the body learn indifference, he resolved, remaining motionless as storms raged, his mind a fortress against discomfort. Insects swarmed, unchecked mosquitoes piercing flesh, ants trailing over limbs, yet he permitted their presence, viewing each sting as a lesson in non-resistance. Serpents slithered nearby, their coils a reminder of mortality's proximity, but Siddhartha sat undisturbed, cultivating a peace that external threats could not breach. This practice deepened his awareness, revealing how aversion amplified pain. Acceptance, conversely, diminished it. Passers-by from nearby villages, shepherd boys, woodcutters, and curious girls often stumbled upon the group, their reactions varying from awe to mockery. Some jeered at the emaciated figures, hurling dust or mud in cruel sport, mistaking stillness for weakness. "Look at these fools starving themselves," they laughed, yet Siddhartha remained oblivious, his concentration a shield against derision. These interruptions served as unintended teachers, highlighting ignorance's prevalence and reinforcing his compassion for deluded beings. Internally, he explored the mind's response. Anger arises from ego, let it pass like clouds. Over time, this equanimity grew, transforming taunts into opportunities for insight. Dietary austerities formed the cornerstone of their practice, pushing Siddhartha toward extremes he had not previously attempted. Beginning with sparse meals, he reduced intake progressively. A handful of wild fruits one day, boiled leaves the next, until sustaining on a single grain of rice daily. Weeks extended this to sesame seeds alone, or nothing but water sipped from the river. The effects manifested dramatically, his once robust frame withered, skin stretching taut over bones like parchment on a drum. Ribs protruded sharply, resembling the bars of an iron cage. Limbs grew gaunt and skeletal, veins mapping a geography of deprivation. His spine became a ridge of vertebrae, visible through thinned flesh, and his belly hollowed like a dried gourd. Under a forehead now furrowed from strain, his eyes retained an undimmed fire, shining with the intensity of consciousness probing existence's mysteries. Despite physical ruin, mental acuity sharpened intermittently, granting visions of karmic interconnections and past existences. For 6 long years, Siddhartha persisted in Uruvela, his austerities, a relentless forge refining spirit through suffering. He explored variations, standing on one leg for days to conquer fatigue, or holding breath until vision blurred, testing consciousness's boundaries. Sleep was minimized to mere hours, reclining on thorny beds to prevent comfort's lure. These practices yielded partial fruits. Detachment from desires grew, and meditative depths allowed glimpses of nirvanic peace, but the ultimate knowledge eluded him. Suffering's root, ignorance breeding craving, remained intact, resurfacing with each return to ordinary awareness. As emaciation peaked, a critical insight dawned. This path weakens the body to the point where clarity falters. How can a starved mind pierce illusion's veil? He recognized the body not as an enemy to vanquish, but a temple to honor, its health essential for spiritual vigor. Nearby village women, observing his plight with concern and admiration, began leaving offerings, grains, fruits, milk, near his meditation spot. Initially, Siddhartha touched them sparingly, adhering to ascetic ideals, but realization prompted change. Accepting nourishment gradually, he noted how strength's return enhanced focus without reigniting gross desires. The 5 ascetics, witnessing this shift, grew disillusioned. "He abandons the holy struggle for comfort," they murmured, eventually departing in disappointment. Alone yet undeterred, Siddhartha explored this balance, his austerity's lessons internalized. Extremes obscured truth, while moderation might illuminate it. These years of extreme practice, though ultimately transcended, were pivotal, honing discipline, revealing limits, and birthing the middle way's seed. Siddhartha's emaciated form became a symbol of dedication, his inner fire undimmed amid outer decay. The river's persistent flow mirrored his journey, adapting, enduring, toward awakening's shore. In exploring austerities with the 5, he gathered wisdom's fragments, preparing for prophetic dreams and the Bodhi tree's call. The path, though arduous, affirmed. Genuine exploration demanded neither indulgence nor denial, but harmonious inquiry into reality's heart. The middle way and preparation for awakening. Realization of extremes' limitations. The years of unyielding asceticism in Uruvela had pushed Siddhartha to the brink of physical collapse, his body a mere shadow of its former self, yet his spirit burned with an unrelenting quest for the truth that could end all suffering. For 6 long seasons, he had immersed himself in the harshest disciplines alongside the 5 ascetics, believing that mortifying the flesh would purify the mind and sever the chains of desire that bound beings to endless cycles of birth and rebirth. Exposed to the relentless sun, rain and wind without shelter, he had sat motionless as insects stung and serpents approached, training his consciousness to remain equanimous amid torment. His diet, reduced to a single grain of rice or a few sesame seeds daily, had ravaged his form. Bones protruded like the framework of a dilapidated hut, ribs stood out as stark bars, and limbs grew so gaunt they resembled dried branches. Beneath an emaciated forehead, his eyes still gleamed with inner fire, but the toll was evident. Weakness seeped into his meditations, clouding the clarity he sought. Visions of past lives and karmic threads flickered during trances, Yet the ultimate awakening eluded him, trapped behind a veil that extreme denial only thickened. As Siddhartha persisted in these austerities, a subtle doubt began to erode his conviction in their efficacy. The practices, while sharpening detachment and revealing desire's insidious grip, failed to address suffering's deepest root, ignorance that birthed craving and perpetuated rebirth's torment. Emerging from prolonged fasts, he noticed how physical exhaustion dulled mental acuity, making sustained concentration a battle rather than a natural flow. If the body wastes away like this, he pondered during a rare moment of respite by the Niranjana's banks, how can the mind housed within it achieve the strength needed for breakthrough? The river's gentle current mirrored his thoughts, flowing neither too forcefully nor stagnantly, but in balanced harmony. He recalled earlier meditative states under Alara and Udaka, profound yet temporary. Now, austerities seemed another extreme, opposing indulgence but equally imbalanced. The palace's luxuries had blinded him with pleasure. These denials blinded him with pain. True liberation, he intuited, lay not in opposition but in transcendence of both. This realization crystallized during a particularly grueling session where Siddhartha attempted to meditate through days without sustenance, his body trembling from deprivation. As consciousness wavered, bordering on collapse, a clear insight pierced the haze. The body was not an enemy to conquer, but a vessel essential for spiritual pursuit. It is a temple, he reflected, not a prison to escape from. Weakening it hinders the very clarity required to pierce illusion. He observed how starvation amplified mental restlessness, desires resurfacing with vengeance upon any nourishment. The ascetic's path, while noble in intent, treated the physical form as adversarial, ignoring its role in supporting awareness. Siddhartha saw the parallel to his palace life. Extremes of comfort and denial, both perpetuated suffering by fighting reality rather than understanding it. In Zen's future echo, he grasped, peace arose from flowing with life, not resisting its fundamental nature. The limitations of extremes became undeniable as Siddhartha's health deteriorated further. His skin hung loose like weathered cloth, veins mapped blue rivers across translucent flesh, and movements grew labored, each breath a conscious effort. During meditations, instead of delving deeper, his mind wandered to survival instincts, craving the very sustenance he denied. How can one uproot craving, he questioned, when denial only intensifies it subtly? He recalled villagers' mockery, dust and mud thrown without disturbing his focus, yet now, internal weakness proved a greater obstacle. The 5 ascetics, witnessing his unwavering commitment, admired him, but Siddhartha sensed their path's shortfall. It suppressed symptoms of suffering without healing the cause. Ignorance persisted, rebirth's wheel turned unabated. This epiphany prompted Siddhartha to reassess his approach, drawing from accumulated wisdom. From Alara's jhanas, he learned concentration's power. From Udaka's subtleties, consciousness's refinement. Now, austerities taught endurance's limits. Balance emerged as key, the middle way, neither indulgence's excess nor denial's deprivation. The lotus thrives with roots in mud, yet blooms above, he mused, symbolizing enlightenment amid worldly conditions without being tainted. He understood the body required nourishment to sustain the mind's vigor. just as a lute's strings needed proper tension for harmonious sound, too loose or tight yielded discord. This insight marked a pivotal shift. Asceticism had refined him, but persisting would destroy the instrument of awakening. Nearby, 10 young women from Uruvela village had observed his practices with growing concern and reverence, leaving small offerings of grain, fruit, and milk near his spot. For months, Siddhartha had barely touched these, adhering to extremes, but realization urged reconsideration. One day, accepting a modest portion, he felt strength trickle back, meditation sharpening without desire's gross resurgence. The ascetics, perceiving this as compromise, expressed disillusionment. He turns to luxury, abandoning the holy struggle. Their departure left Siddhartha alone, yet unperturbed. Their judgment highlighted attachment to methods over truth. Paths are fingers pointing to the moon, he thought, not the moon itself. As nourishment gradually restored vitality, Siddhartha explored this balanced approach, meditating with renewed clarity. Visions clarified, consciousnesses flow through forms, sufferings chain from ignorance to death. He realized extremes' limitations lay in their duality. Fighting life created resistance, while acceptance transformed it. The body, honored as ally, enabled deeper dives into reality. This phase bridged asceticism to awakening, preparing for prophetic dreams signaling enlightenment's approach. In recognizing extremes' bounds, Siddhartha embodied wisdom's essence. Truth demanded neither excess nor lack, but mindful harmony. The river's flow, constant yet adaptable, became his guide, neither raging torrent nor stagnant pool. Uruvela's groves witnessed this turning point, where denial's grip loosened, paving the middle way. Compassion deepened for all seekers lost in opposites. His journey, a beacon, limitations acknowledged, birthed true progress toward freedom. Acceptance of nourishment from village women. The turning point in Siddhartha's arduous journey came not through further deprivation but through a gentle act of acceptance, as he began to recognize the wisdom in harmonizing with his human needs rather than warring against them. For years in the secluded groves of Uruvela, he had pushed his body to extremes, believing that only by conquering physical desires could he purify his mind and uncover the root of suffering. Yet, as his frame withered, bones jutting sharply beneath taut skin, energy waning to the point where even meditation became a labored effort, a profound insight emerged. Such relentless denial was not liberating his spirit, but imprisoning it within a weakened vessel. The Niranjana River, flowing steadily nearby, served as a silent teacher, its waters neither stagnant nor turbulent, but balanced in their persistent motion. Siddhartha pondered this natural equilibrium, realizing that true awakening required a similar middle path, one that nourished the body sufficiently to sustain the mind's clarity without indulging in excess that bred attachment. This realization marked the dawn of the middle way, a pivotal shift from opposition to integration, where he learned to work with his human nature rather than against it in pursuit of ultimate truth. Near the site of his austerities lay the village of Uruvela, a modest settlement where simple folk tended fields and drew sustenance from the river's bounty. Among them were 10 young women, observant and kind-hearted, who had watched Siddhartha's spiritual endeavors from afar with a mixture of concern and deep admiration. These women, moved by the sight of this resolute seeker sitting motionless for days, exposed to the elements and subsisting on next to nothing, began to leave small offerings near his meditation spot. Grains of rice, ripe fruits from their orchards, and occasionally nuts or wild honey were placed discreetly on broad leaves or in woven baskets, positioned where he might find them without intrusion. Their gestures stemmed not from pity, but from reverence. They sensed something sacred in his unwavering discipline, a quiet nobility that inspired them to contribute to his quest in whatever humble way they could. For months, Siddhartha had scarcely touched these gifts, adhering strictly to his ascetic vows, viewing any acceptance as a potential slide back into sensory dependence. The offerings often remained untouched, wilting under the sun or claimed by forest creatures, as he prioritized inner purification over physical restoration. But as the limitations of his extreme practices became undeniable meditations interrupted by dizziness, insights blurred by fatigue, Siddhartha reconsidered. The body is a temple, not a prison to escape, he reflected one evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting golden hues across the river. Starvation had sharpened his awareness in some ways, revealing the mind's resilience, but it now hindered the very focus needed for deeper penetration into reality's fabric. Recognizing that change was essential to achieve his goal of complete awakening, he began to accept the women's offerings, starting with small portions that gently rebuilt his strength. A few grains of rice here, a piece of fruit there, each bite taken mindfully, with gratitude rather than greed, transforming sustenance into a meditative act. He observed how nourishment restored vitality without reigniting gross cravings, allowing his consciousness to delve further without the distraction of bodily collapse. The young women noticed this shift almost immediately, their hearts lifting with quiet joy at seeing their contributions finally received. One day, upon returning to the spot, they found the previous offering entirely consumed, the basket empty, not a crumb remaining. This subtle sign encouraged them, and the next morning they arrived with slightly larger portions, a handful more grains, an extra fruit, perhaps a small vessel of fresh milk from their cows. Siddhartha accepted these too, consuming them completely, his body responding with gradual renewal. Energy returned in waves, muscles subtly regaining form, and his skin losing its pallid hue. As he continued to partake, the women increased their offerings incrementally, sensing his needs through observant intuition. They brought nourishing items that sustained without overwhelming boiled roots, fermented curds, and seasonal produce, ensuring he received enough to restore health while preserving the mental sharpness honed by years of discipline. Before long, Siddhartha's condition improved markedly, allowing him to walk to the village itself for the first time in ages. The inhabitants, who had heard tales of the holy man by the river, greeted him with reverence and hospitality, competing in their generosity. Farmers offered fresh harvests, women prepared simple meals, and children watched wide-eyed as this emaciated yet radiant figure moved among them. Siddhartha accepted these gifts with humble bows, his presence inspiring a sense of communal blessing. Conversations flowed naturally. He spoke little, but his words carried weight, sharing insights on compassion and impermanence that left villagers pondering long after. This interaction deepened his empathy, revealing how ordinary folk suffered quietly, bound by daily toils, fears of loss, and unexamined desires further fueling his resolve to find a universal path to freedom. As physical vitality returned, Siddhartha's natural beauty and inner luminosity resurfaced, his eyes shining with refined wisdom, his movements graceful despite lingering frailty. It became evident that the period of extreme asceticism had not diminished his spiritual development, but had purified it, stripping away superficial layers to reveal a deeper resilience. The austerities had taught him endurance and detachment, but acceptance of nourishment now allowed access to even profounder levels of understanding. Meditations grew more potent, visions of interdependent existence clarified, and the chain of suffering from ignorance to craving to rebirth unfolded with greater lucidity. When we stop fighting life, life stops fighting us, he internalized, experiencing how harmony with the body enhanced rather than hindered the quest. The prophetic dreams and inner signs. As Siddhartha embraced the middle way, harmonizing his physical needs with spiritual discipline through the nourishing gifts of the village women, a profound equilibrium settled over his being, a balance between effort and ease, austerity and compassion, that allowed his consciousness to expand without the hindrance of extremes. No longer weakened by starvation, nor distracted by indulgence, his meditations deepened into states of crystalline clarity, where the boundaries of self and world began to dissolve. The groves of Uruvela, with their ancient trees, and the Niranjana's soothing flow, seemed to conspire in his favor, the natural world reflecting the inner harmony he had discovered. It was in this state of poised readiness, where body and mind aligned like a perfectly tuned instrument, that the universe signaled the approach of his long-sought awakening through a series of vivid, prophetic dreams. These visions arrived one night as he slept peacefully in a simple shelter of leaves, his rest undisturbed by the restless cravings that had once plagued him. Far from ordinary reveries, these dreams carried symbolic weight, each unveiling layers of his destiny and affirming that the culmination of his quest was at hand. The first dream unfolded with cosmic grandeur, transporting Siddhartha to a vast expanse where he lay upon a bed encompassing the entire earth, its continents and oceans forming the mattress beneath him. The mighty Himalayas served as his pillow, cradling his head with their snow-capped peaks, while his right hand extended across the western ocean, fingers dipping into its boundless waves. His left hand reached the eastern sea, palm open to its horizon, and his feet touched the southern waters, toes brushing the tides that lapped at distant shores. This image spoke not of physical dominion, but of consciousness's infinite embrace, a mind awakened to encompass all existence without separation or limitation. It symbolized the universal scope of his impending enlightenment, where awareness would stretch to include every being's joys and sorrows, guiding them beyond suffering's confines. Upon reflection, Siddhartha understood this as a sign that his realization would benefit the world entire, transcending personal liberation to become a beacon for all. The second dream shifted to a more intimate yet equally profound vision, where a slender reed sprouted from his navel, growing with astonishing rapidity until its tip pierced the sky itself. This reed, sturdy and unyielding, represented the spiritual axis connecting earth to heaven, the pathway along which consciousness ascends from mundane entanglement to divine insight. Rooted in the body's center, it symbolized the integration of physical and ethereal realms, affirming that enlightenment arose not by rejecting the human form, but by channeling its energies upward. Siddhartha perceived this as confirmation of the middle way's validity. His balanced approach had established the inner conduit for truth to flow, bridging the material world's mud with the celestial purity above. The dream's upward thrust mirrored his own journey, from palace routes through ascetic trials to the heavens of awakening. In the third dream, Siddhartha found himself covered in wriggling worms that crawled relentlessly up his legs and enveloped his entire body, a sight that might evoke revulsion in ordinary sleep. Yet, as he observed without fear, these creatures transformed before his eyes, morphing into multitudes of seekers and students approaching him with folded hands and eager hearts. What appeared as affliction became a gathering of souls drawn to his wisdom, symbolizing the future role he would play as a teacher whose light attracted those wandering in darkness. This vision indicated that his enlightenment would not remain solitary but would draw countless beings seeking guidance, their infestation of questions turning into a harmonious community of the awakened. It stirred in him a deepened compassion, recognizing that suffering's worms, ignorance and desire could metamorphose into aspirants through the power of shared truth. The fourth dream brought a symphony of movement as birds flocked toward him from every cardinal direction, north, south, east and west, their wings beating in unified rhythm. As they neared his head, these ordinary creatures underwent a miraculous alchemy, their feathers transmuting into pure gold that gleamed with otherworldly luster. This imagery represented the convergence of diverse seeking paths, traditions, philosophies, and inquiries from all corners of existence, being refined into golden wisdom upon encountering his teaching. No matter the origin or form of the search, it would be elevated and purified, symbolizing the universality of his impending realization. Siddhartha awoke from this with a sense of inclusivity, understanding that enlightenment's light would transform all approaches, turning the mundane into the sublime, and uniting fragmented quests into coherent liberation. The fifth and most potent dream presented a challenge of equanimity, where Siddhartha stood at the base of an enormous mountain composed entirely of filth and excrement, a grotesque mass that towered like a monument to worldly defilement. Undaunted, he climbed its slippery slopes with perfect composure, reaching the summit and descending the other side without a single stain marring his form. This powerful symbol encapsulated his readiness to confront humanity's basest sufferings, ignorance, greed, hatred, without being contaminated or overwhelmed. It affirmed his inner purity, honed through trials, allowing him to navigate even the most repulsive aspects of existence while maintaining unblemished awareness. The dream's message was clear. True awakening involved immersion in life's mess without attachment, emerging unscathed through non-resistance and wisdom. Awakening from these 5 dreams, Siddhartha felt an absolute certainty wash over him, like the first light of dawn dispelling night's shadows. Each vision had been a divine affirmation, prophetic indicators that his prolonged preparation sheltered youth, shocking encounters with suffering, renunciation, studies with teachers, extreme austerities, and the middle way's embrace had led to this threshold. The time has come, he knew beyond doubt, to attain the supreme knowledge that frees all from sorrow. No longer a seeker adrift, he sensed the universe aligning for his final breakthrough. Rising with purposeful grace, he set out toward Uruvela village, intuition guiding him to receive one final meal before the ultimate meditation. Inner signs proliferated. A subtle luminosity emanated from his form. Birds sang in harmonious chorus, and the air carried a fragrance of impending sanctity. These omens, coupled with the dreams, confirmed his readiness, the cosmos whispering that enlightenment's doorway stood open. This night of visions marked the culmination of inner preparation, where prophetic symbols intertwined with accumulated wisdom to herald transformation. Siddhartha's heart swelled with quiet joy, not for personal gain but for the boundless benefit his awakening would bring. The dreams served as inner signs, mapping the journey's end and the teaching's beginning, affirming that compassion's fruit ripened through balanced pursuit. In Uruvela's sacred space, he stepped forward, the weight of lifetimes lifting as destiny unfolded. The final meal from Sujata. As Siddhartha's acceptance of nourishment restored his physical vitality and sharpened his mental clarity, the signs of impending enlightenment intensified, culminating in a sacred encounter that would provide the sustenance for his final breakthrough. The prophetic dreams had affirmed that his long years of preparation from the sheltered palace life and shocking encounters with suffering through renunciation, studies with teachers, extreme austerities, and the discovery of the middle way were converging toward the supreme awakening. With renewed strength flowing through his veins, he rose one morning from his resting place in the Uruvela groves, an inner knowing guiding him toward the village. He understood intuitively that he required one final meal before undertaking the meditation that would shatter the illusions, binding all beings to cycles of pain and rebirth. This nourishment would not be ordinary but blessed, a divine offering to fuel the transformation awaiting him beneath the Bodhi tree. The air seemed charged with anticipation, birds singing in harmonious welcome, and the Niranjana's waters reflecting a luminous path forward. Among the 10 young women who had faithfully provided for him, one named Sujata stood out for her exceptional devotion and spiritual sensitivity. Living in Uruvela, Sujata had observed Siddhartha's journey with a heart attuned to its sacred nature, her offerings infused with pure intention. That morning, she tended to her 8 remarkable cows, animals whose milk possessed an almost supernatural richness and flavor, nourishing beyond mere sustenance. As she milked them, gathering the creamy liquid in a vessel, she prepared to cook a special rice pudding, adding grains and honey for sweetness. This was no routine task, but a ritual guided by intuition, as if the gods themselves directed her hands. Placing a new pot on a fresh stove, she set the mixture to boil, stirring with love that elevated the simple ingredients into something transcendent. Suddenly, extraordinary phenomena unfolded, confirming the day's auspiciousness. Massive bubbles formed and floated gracefully to the right, without causing the liquid to overflow or spill even a drop. The stove emitted no smoke despite the fire's intensity, and the cooking process defied natural laws, proceeding with ethereal perfection. Amazement filled Sujata as she witnessed these miracles, her heart quickening with reverence. "The gods bless our efforts today," she exclaimed to her servant, Puna. "This wondrous occurrence signals something sacred. Go quickly and see if the holy man approaches our home." Puna hurried to the doorway, peering along the path leading from the groves. There, she beheld Siddhartha walking toward them, but he appeared utterly transformed from the emaciated ascetic they had cared for. A brilliant golden light radiated from his form, so intense that she could scarcely gaze directly upon him. as if the sun itself had descended to earth in human guise. Breathless, Puna rushed back. "He comes, mistress, but prepare yourself, his splendor overwhelms, shining like the dawn's first rays." Sujata's joy overflowed. "Let him come. This milk rice was prepared for him alone, and now I see destiny has chosen this day for greatness." Siddhartha arrived at Sujata's humble dwelling, his presence illuminating the surroundings with a radiance that spoke of approaching divinity. The air grew fragrant, as if lotuses bloomed invisibly, and a serene hush fell over the village. Sujata approached with deepest respect, bowing 7 times in traditional reverence, her hands clasped in devotion. She offered him a golden bowl filled with the miraculous rice milk, its surface gleaming with the honey's sheen and the milk's purity. The bowl itself seemed destined for this moment, ornate yet simple, a vessel worthy of one on enlightenment's threshold. As Siddhartha accepted it, he felt more than physical nourishment pass between them, a blessing sustaining him through the ultimate confrontation with delusion and fear. In that instant, he recognized the profound significance. All Buddhas throughout time have received their final meal before awakening in a golden vessel like this. Since Sujata offers it at precisely the right moment, with pure heart and miraculous signs, I know the hour of fulfillment has arrived. He consumed the mixture slowly and gratefully, each spoonful infusing him with strength that permeated body and mind. The rice milk, enriched by the cow's exceptional yield and Sujata's loving preparation, revitalized him completely, clarity sharpening to a razor's edge. Energy coursed through his veins like a gentle river, washing away lingering traces of austerity's toll, preparing him for the unshakable resolve ahead. Siddhartha understood this as the final worldly sustenance, a bridge from seeking to finding, where human kindness met divine timing. Sujata watched in awe, her eyes reflecting the golden light emanating from him, knowing intuitively she had played a role in history's unfolding. "May this nourish your path to the truth that frees all," she whispered, bowing once more as he finished. With the meal complete, Siddhartha rose, his form now radiating an even brighter aura, as if the nourishment had ignited an inner sun. He offered Sujata a gentle smile of gratitude, his words carrying eternal weight. "Your offering, given with pure heart, sustains not just me but the awakening that will benefit countless beings." Departing her home, he felt the final pieces aligning the dream's prophecies, the middle way's balance, and this blessed sustenance converging toward the Bodhi tree. The village seemed transformed in his wake, flowers blooming unseasonably, birds circling in joyful patterns, affirming the moment's sanctity. Sujata and Puna stood in reverent silence, their simple act elevated to legend, a testament to how devotion's humility could support greatness. This final meal from Sujata symbolized the middle way's fruition, acceptance of life's gifts without attachment, nourishment as a means rather than end. It prepared Siddhartha physically and spiritually, his body fortified, mind serene, heart open to the profound meditation ahead. The golden bowl, mirroring his inner light, marked the threshold beyond, lay the confrontation with Mara and the watches of the night leading to Buddhahood. In this act of receiving, Siddhartha embodied wisdom. True strength arose from harmony, not force, allowing the universe's flow to carry him toward liberation. The stage was set, the preparation complete, and the journey's climax beckoned. journey to the Bodhi tree and vow of resolve. As the sun descended toward the horizon, casting a warm golden glow over the landscape and marking the peaceful close of the day, Siddhartha felt the revitalizing energy of Sujata's miraculous rice milk coursing through his being. This final meal, offered with such pure devotion and blessed by divine signs, had fortified him not just physically but spiritually, preparing him for the culmination of his epic quest. With a heart full of quiet determination and a mind attuned to the subtle whispers of destiny, he began walking slowly along the banks of the Niranjana River, drawn inexorably toward a destination that seemed to call to him from across the veil of ordinary existence. The evening light softened the world into a canvas of sacred beauty, where every shadow and shimmer felt imbued with profound meaning. Sweet fragrances wafted from the surrounding fields and gardens, mingling with the gentle songs of birds bidding farewell to the day, as if all of nature conspired to honor this pivotal journey. Siddhartha moved with unhurried grace, each step a mindful affirmation of his readiness. The river's flow beside him, symbolizing the middle way he had embraced, neither stagnant nor rushed, but in perfect equilibrium. As he progressed, the path beneath his feet underwent a miraculous transformation, as though the cosmos itself were laying out a royal welcome for the one approaching enlightenment's threshold. Gold dust appeared to sprinkle the ground where his sandals touched, creating a sparkling trail that caught the fading sunlight like scattered stars upon the earth. Rare palm trees lined the route, their trunks encrusted with precious stones that refracted light in mesmerizing patterns, alive with an inner fire that spoke of divine craftsmanship. It was as if the ordinary dirt road had been elevated into a pathway through paradise, a celestial carpet unrolling before him in recognition of his purified intent. Siddhartha observed these wonders without attachment, understanding them as manifestations of the harmonious alignment between his inner state and the external world, affirmations that his long preparation had ripened into this sacred moment. The journey led him past a blessed pool, its waters exhaling an intoxicating fragrance that induced a natural state of meditative peace simply by breathing it in. Lotuses of white, yellow, blue, and red spread their enormous petals across the surface, floating in serene splendor, while the clear, melodious songs of swans filled the air, their voices echoing like music from higher realms rather than earthly creatures. This landscape blurred the lines between the physical and spiritual, the boundary thinning until they merged into a unified reality of profound sanctity. Siddhartha paused briefly, allowing the scene's tranquility to deepen his resolve, recognizing it as a final purification before the ultimate confrontation with illusion. Rising before him like a natural cathedral sculpted by creation's hand stood the Bodhi tree, its presence both utterly grounded in the earth and supremely transcendent, with branches spreading wide in a protective canopy that seemed to embrace the entire cosmos. This was no mere tree, but a living emblem of the interconnection between mundane existence and eternal truth. Its roots delved deep into the soil of ordinary reality, drawing nourishment from the world's impermanence, while its limbs reached upward toward the infinite sky, symbolizing the ascent of consciousness from suffering to liberation. Siddhartha approached with steps that carried him across not just physical terrain, but the threshold from seeker to awakener, his heart swelling with reverence for the sacred convergence unfolding. He circled to the eastern side of the tree, the direction of dawn and new beginnings, and bowed 7 times in deep homage, acknowledging the divine forces that had guided him through lifetimes of preparation. Then, gathering several handfuls of the soft grass growing nearby, he scattered them upon the ground beneath the tree's sheltering branches. In that instant, as if materialized by the power of his unwavering intention and the readiness of the cosmic moment, a magnificent seat appeared where the grass had fallen, covered in lush, yielding blades like the finest natural carpet. It formed a throne perfectly suited for the meditation that would forever alter human consciousness. This was the diamond seat, the immovable foundation where suffering would be comprehended and transcended, its emergence a miracle affirming Siddhartha's alignment with truth. Settling upon this sacred seat with graceful poise, Siddhartha held his head and shoulders erect, embodying the dignity of one who had transcended doubt and fear. He turned his face toward the east, aligning himself with the rising sun's promise of illumination, feeling the solid earth support him below and the vast sky expand above. In that profound moment of commitment, words arose from the depths of his being, echoing across the grove with the unshakable authority of absolute resolve. Even if my skin should parch and crack under the sun's unrelenting heat, he declared, his voice resonant and unwavering, even if my hands should wither and lose all strength, even if my bones should crumble into dust and scatter upon the wind, I will not rise from this seat until I have attained the supreme knowledge that sets all beings free from the endless cycle of suffering. With this vow sealed, Siddhartha crossed his legs into the stable meditation posture, his body becoming a vessel of immovable determination. He entered a stillness deeper than mountain silence, more resolute than a river's course to the sea, his breath steady and awareness vast. The light emanating from him in this state was no ordinary glow, but the luminosity of consciousness on the verge of full awakening, piercing even to distant realms where forces of delusion held sway. This radiance reached Mara, the embodiment of all that keeps beings trapped in fear and desire, heralding the battle to come. Yet, for now, Siddhartha remained focused, his vow a beacon of commitment that would inspire seekers through ages. The journey to the Bodhi tree and this solemn pledge marked the pinnacle of preparation, where all prior trials converged into unyielding purpose. Siddhartha's resolve embodied the middle way's fruition, balanced, compassionate, and free from extremes, setting the stage for the night of enlightenment. In vowing not to move until truth dawned, he exemplified what complete dedication to liberation looked like. His words, a timeless example for all who seek to end resistance and flow into genuine peace. The tree's shade enveloped him like a divine mantle, the world holding its breath as destiny unfolded beneath its branches. The night of enlightenment and victory over Mara, seating under the Bodhi tree and initial meditation. As the final rays of the setting sun bathed the landscape in a serene amber light, Siddhartha settled into the sacred space beneath the Bodhi tree, his body and mind aligned in perfect readiness for the ultimate confrontation with the illusions that perpetuated human suffering. The journey to this moment had been a tapestry woven from countless threads. His birth in opulent Kapilavastu, the shocking encounters with old age, sickness, and death that shattered his sheltered innocence, the painful renunciation of family and throne, the rigorous studies with teachers like Alara Kalama and Udaka Ramaputta, the years of extreme austerities with the 5 ascetics, and the pivotal discovery of the middle way through balanced nourishment. Each experience had refined him, stripping away layers of delusion to reveal a consciousness poised on the edge of full awakening. The Bodhi tree stood as a living sentinel, its roots anchoring deep into the earth while branches reached toward the heavens, symbolizing the bridge between mundane existence and transcendent truth. Siddhartha approached the eastern side, the direction of dawn and renewal, bowing 7 times in reverence to the divine forces that had guided him. Scattering handfuls of soft grass upon the ground, he witnessed a miracle. The blades transformed into a magnificent seat, cushioned like the finest natural throne, materializing as if by the power of his unyielding intention. Seating himself upon this diamond-hard yet yielding platform, Siddhartha assumed the lotus posture, legs crossed in stable symmetry, hands resting gently in his lap, with palms upward in a gesture of openness. His spine erect, shoulders relaxed, he embodied the dignity of one who had transcended worldly concerns, his gaze turning eastward toward the emerging stars. The air around him grew still, as if the world held its breath, the Niranjana's distant murmur a subtle underscore to the profound silence enveloping the grove. In this moment of absolute commitment, words arose from the core of his being, proclaimed with a voice that carried the weight of eternal resolve. Even if my skin should parch and crack under the heat of the sun, even if my hands should wither and lose all their strength, even if my bones should crumble into dust and scatter on the wind, I will not move from this seat until I have attained the supreme knowledge that can free all beings from the suffering that seems so fundamental to existence. This vow was no mere declaration but a binding oath, echoing through the cosmos as a testament to his unbreakable determination, forged in the fires of countless trials. With the vow sealed, Siddhartha entered the initial phases of meditation, his breath slowing to a rhythmic cadence that synchronized with the pulse of the universe. He began with mindfulness of the body, scanning sensations from head to toe, the cool grass beneath him, the subtle warmth of his skin, the gentle rise and fall of his abdomen, observing each without attachment or aversion. This foundational practice, honed through years of exploration, grounded him in the present moment, dissolving distractions like mist before the sun. As concentration deepened, he progressed to awareness of the mind, watching thoughts arise and pass like leaves floating on the river, neither grasping nor rejecting them. The middle way's balance shone here, no longer forcing suppression through austerity, nor allowing indulgences scatter, but a gentle, unwavering observation that revealed the impermanent nature of all phenomena. The light emanating from Siddhartha as he delved into this initial meditation was extraordinary, not the flicker of ordinary flame, but the steady radiance of consciousness approaching its zenith. This luminosity pierced the gathering twilight, extending beyond the visible realm into dimensions where Mara, the personification of delusion, fear, and desire, held dominion. Mara, enthroned in shadowy kingdoms built on ignorance, felt this brilliance like a dagger of clarity cutting through his illusions. A voice seemed to resonate in his domain. The one who renounced a kingdom now sits beneath the tree of knowledge, concentrating with focus that penetrates every veil, making the supreme effort to bring liberation to all creatures. The announcement filled Mara with dread, foretelling the end of his reign over human consciousness, where realms of awakening would overflow and ignorance's empire would empty. Disturbed, Mara attempted slumber to escape the growing panic, but nightmares assailed him. Visions of his palace crumbling, armies fleeing, weapons failing, symbolizing the dissolution of delusion before truth's advance. Awakening in terror, he summoned his forces, embodiments of mental torments like doubt, pride, and craving. His son, Sartaha, representing ego's comparisons, noted Mara's pallor. "Father, what disturbs you so?" Mara confessed the prophetic voice and dreams heralding defeat. Despite Sartaha's counsel to avoid confrontation, Mara rallied his army, refusing surrender. This host bristled with weapons of psychological warfare, pikes of doubt, arrows of self-criticism, axes of despair, manifestations colored in depression's black, loneliness's blue, anxiety's yellow, anger's red. Multiple heads and arms symbolized worry's multiplication and grasping's frenzy, adorned with gruesome necklaces of bones, signifying spiritual death. Before assault, Mara unleashed elemental fury, cyclones uprooting trees, torrents flooding lands, blazing meteors hurling toward the tree. These represented life's upheavals, unexpected changes, overwhelming emotions, painful bombardments designed to shatter concentration. Yet Siddhartha remained unmoved, not a fold of his robe disturbed, finding the eye of every storm through non-resistance. Winds symbolized grasping at stability. He let go, and they passed harmlessly. Rains embodied emotional floods. Acceptance kept him dry. Meteors, life's attacks, transformed mid-air into flowers. Scattering gently around him, aggression met with equanimity blooming into beauty. Frustrated, Mara loosed arrows of doubt, regret, fear, thousands filling the sky. But each underwent alchemical change, becoming fragrant blossoms carpeting the ground. The army charged, but Siddhartha's radiance acted as an impenetrable shield, not through force but presence, shattering weapons and turning them floral. Terror gripped the forces. They fled, leaving Mara alone, wringing hands in defeat. "What proof of generosity entitles him to victory?" Mara demanded. The earth herself responded, her voice thundering, "I bear witness to his boundless giving across lifetimes, 100, 1,000 offerings of self for others' sake. In this life, he will destroy suffering's roots." A beautiful woman emerged from the ground to her waist, bowing to Siddhartha. "I testify to his worthiness." Mara wept, recognizing defeat, not by battle but by truth's revelation, illusions crumbling before unconditional acceptance. With Mara's retreat at sunset, Siddhartha's initial meditation transitioned into the night's 3 watches. The first unveiled past lives, births, growths, deaths across forms, revealing consciousness's thread through experiences. The second expanded to all beings' present states, seeing actions, shaping realities, possibilities for transformation in every moment. The third penetrated existence's heart, comprehending dependent origination, ignorance birthing desire, leading to suffering, breakable through awareness. As dawn broke, Siddhartha became the Buddha, awakened to truth, freeing all. The earth trembled joyfully, gods sang. The eye of the world opens. His declaration, "I have seen the builder of suffering's house, it builds no more." Nirvana attained, birth into unconsciousness ended. Mara's assault with winds, rains, and weapons. As Siddhartha sat immovable beneath the Bodhi tree, his vow of resolve echoing through the grove like a sacred proclamation, the initial phases of his meditation deepened into profound stillness. Yet, this serenity was soon challenged by forces beyond the visible world. The radiant light emanating from his concentrated awareness, a brilliance born of consciousness on the verge of full awakening, pierced through realms where delusion reigned supreme. In the shadowy domain of Mara, the embodiment of all that keeps beings ensnared in cycles of fear, desire, and ignorance. This luminosity arrived like a blinding flash, disrupting the equilibrium of deception. Mara, the commander of mental torments, heard what seemed like a divine voice proclaiming the inevitable. The one who renounced royalty now sits beneath the tree of knowledge, focusing his mind with penetrating clarity, exerting the supreme effort that will soon deliver all creatures from confusion and pain. This announcement foretold the filling of awakened realms and the emptying of ignorance's kingdom, leaving Mara as a ruler without subjects, stripped of his illusory power. Panic gripped Mara, a dread that shook the foundations of his deceptive empire. He attempted to retreat into sleep, hoping unconsciousness would shield him from the approaching transformation, but nightmares invaded his repose. Visions assaulted him, black dust clouds enveloping his palace, symbolizing dissolution, his loyal servants fleeing to unreachable havens, his sword stuck in its scabbard, useless against the light, subjects recoiling in horror as darkness consumed everything, culminating in his stronghold's thunderous collapse. These dreams mirrored the crumbling of delusion before truth's advance, forcing Mara awake in a state of profound distress. His face paled, his heart raced with uncharacteristic fear, and his limbs trembled as if beholding his own end. Summoning his entourage, the manifestations of every psychological affliction plaguing consciousness, he appeared before them shaken, a leader on the brink. Sartaha, Mara's son embodying pride and comparison, approached with concern. "Father, your unease is palpable, heart pounding, body quaking. What vision has shattered your command?" Mara, voice heavy with foreboding, revealed the celestial warning and tormenting dreams. "My power wanes," the voice declares, "his awakening will end our dominion. Nightmares show my palace in ruins, armies deserted, weapons impotent." Despite Sartaha's advice to evade battle and preserve dignity, Mara rejected retreat, his ego fueling defiance. "I will not yield without contest," he declared, ordering his full army to advance against the threat beneath the Bodhi tree. This host was a terrifying spectacle, armed with instruments of mental warfare, piercing pikes of doubt, arrows of self-judgment, swords of envy that lacerated the soul, massive axes of despair, and crushing clubs of confusion. Soldiers appeared in hues of torment, black as deepest depression, blue as isolating loneliness, yellow as paralyzing anxiety, red as consuming rage. Their faces grotesque, masks with flaming eyes and blood-spewing mouths, multiple heads, multiplying worries, numerous arms grasping frantically, necklaces of bones and fingers dangled as grim trophies of unconscious living's toll. Before direct assault, Mara demonstrated his might, rousing nature's fury to terrify Siddhartha into abandonment. Whirlwinds erupted from every direction, cyclones so violent they uprooted ancient trees with roots like grasping hands, devastated villages in swirling chaos, and shook mountains until boulders cascaded like tears from stone giants. These tempests symbolized life's unpredictable upheavals, sudden changes that overwhelm when one clings to stability. Yet, Siddhartha remained utterly still, not a hair disturbed, embodying the eye of the hurricane where peace persists amid chaos. His non-resistance revealed, "You are the awareness watching thoughts, unaffected by external storms." Undeterred, Mara summoned torrential rains, floods descending with force capable of submerging cities and scarring the earth. These deluges represented overwhelming emotions: grief, anger, fear that drowned peace when unmet with equanimity. Waters raged around the tree, but Siddhartha stayed dry, his robe untouched, existing in a space beyond reach, demonstrating acceptance's power to remain afloat in emotional torrents. Next came blazing rocks, meteors glowing with infernal heat, hurtling toward their target with cosmic destruction's might. These fiery projectiles symbolized life's painful bombardments, losses, betrayals, injustices that feel like attacks from an uncaring universe. As they neared, a miracle occurred. Flames extinguished, hardness softened, and they fell as gentle flowers, scattering petals around the seat like devotional offerings. This transformation illustrated non-resistance's alchemy meeting aggression with presence turns weapons into beauty. Frustrated, Mara commanded his army to loose arrows, thousands filling the sky, darts of self-doubt, spears of regret, javelins of future fear, barbs of criticism designed to pierce worthiness. But each underwent the same metamorphosis, becoming fragrant blooms that carpeted the ground in a garden of transcendence. Finally, the horde charged in massive onslaught, intending to overwhelm through sheer force. Siddhartha's radiance formed an impenetrable barrier, not of opposition but pure presence, shattering swords and axes into floral shards. Terror seized the soldiers. They fled in disarray, abandoning arms that bloomed upon falling, the battlefield becoming paradise. Alone, Mara despaired. "What have I done wrong? I rewarded loyalty, witness my generosity," retreating troops affirmed, but Mara challenged Siddhartha's worthiness. The earth responded, "I bear witness to his boundless giving across existences, body, eyes, life offered for others. He surpasses you in strength and compassion." A woman rose from the ground, bowing, "I testify to his purity." Mara wept, defeated not by force but recognition, illusions empty before truth. As sunset claimed the day, Mara's army vanished, leaving Siddhartha in undisturbed meditation, transitioning to the night's watches where enlightenment would dawn. Transformation of attacks into flowers. As Siddhartha maintained his unyielding posture beneath the Bodhi tree, his initial meditation evolving into deeper absorption, the assault from Mara intensified, manifesting as a barrage of psychological and elemental forces designed to shatter his resolve. Yet, in the face of these onslaughts, a profound miracle unfolded, one that demonstrated the transformative power of complete non-resistance and equanimous presence. Mara's army, a horrifying assembly of every mental affliction known to consciousness, advanced with savage cries and hideous laughter echoing through the grove. Their weapons, pikes of piercing doubt that could impale self-confidence, arrows of self-criticism sharpened to lacerate the heart, swords of comparison that sliced through peace with envy, enormous battle axes of despair, heavy enough to crush hope, and blunt clubs of confusion that bludgeoned clarity were wielded with ferocious intent. The soldiers themselves were grotesque embodiments of torment, some black as the abyss of depression that swallows light, others blue as the chill of loneliness that isolates the soul, yellow as the nausea of anxiety that twists the gut, red as the blaze of anger that consumes reason. Multiple heads represented the endless proliferation of worries that multiply like shadows in the mind, while numerous arms symbolized the frantic grasping that perpetuates cycles of wanting and disappointment. Necklaces fashioned from bones and dried fingers dangled as macabre reminders of how unconscious living leads to spiritual decay and the erosion of all that is vital and beautiful in human nature. Before unleashing the full charge, Mara had already demonstrated his dominion over the elements, summoning cyclones that ravaged the landscape, uprooting trees with roots clawing at the sky, devastating villages in whirlwinds of chaos, and shaking mountains until boulders tumbled like the tears of defeated giants. These tempests were no mere weather phenomena, but metaphors for life's unpredictable disruptions, sudden changes that overwhelm when one clings desperately to illusions of control and permanence. The winds howled with the force of existential upheaval, threatening to sweep away any seeker not anchored in profound stillness. Yet Siddhartha remained utterly unmoved, his robe undisturbed, his breath steady, embodying the calm at the center of every storm. By not resisting the gales, neither fighting against them nor fleeing from them, he revealed a fundamental truth. You are not the turbulence of thoughts and circumstances, but the awareness that observes them impassively. The cyclones dissipated harmlessly around him, their fury spent without impact, teaching that acceptance turns destructive forces into passing phenomena. Undaunted, Mara escalated with torrential rains, floods descending with apocalyptic might, capable of submerging entire cities and carving scars into the Earth's surface. These deluges symbolize the overwhelming floods of emotion, waves of grief, torrents of anger, cascades of fear that can drown inner peace when met with resistance or denial. Waters surged toward the Bodhi tree, threatening to engulf the seat of awakening in a sea of chaos. But again, Siddhartha's equanimity prevailed. Not a single drop touched his skin or dampened his resolve. He existed in a space of profound presence, where external floods could not penetrate, illustrating how mindful acceptance allows one to remain dry amid emotional storms. The rains receded, their power neutralized, affirming that non-attachment transforms potential catastrophe into mere moisture, evaporating under wisdom's sun. The assault continued with blazing rocks, meteors ignited with the heat of 1,000 forges, streaking through the sky with the velocity of cosmic annihilation. These fiery projectiles represented the painful bombardments life hurls, unexpected losses that burn the heart, betrayals that scorch trust, injustices that ignite rage like wildfires. Hurtling toward their target, they embodied attacks from an seemingly hostile universe, designed to incinerate any aspiration to transcendence. As they approached the tree, Siddhartha's unwavering presence triggered an alchemical miracle. The flames extinguished mid-flight, the rock's hardness softened, and they fell not as instruments of destruction, but as delicate flowers, petals drifting gently to the ground like offerings from a grateful cosmos. This transformation was no magical deflection, but the natural outcome of equanimity meeting aggression without counter-aggression, allowing hostility to reveal its inherent emptiness. The meteors, symbols of suffering's assaults, bloomed into beauty, scattering around the meditation seat in a fragrant carpet that perfumed the air with victory's sweetness. Emboldened, yet desperate, Mara commanded his archers to loose their volley, thousands of arrows filling the twilight sky like a deadly swarm. Darts tipped with self-doubt that could puncture confidence, spears of regret lancing the past's wounds, javelins of future fear impaling hope, and barbs of criticism designed to erode worthiness at its core. This barrage epitomized the internal assaults that plague every seeker, the mind's own weapons turned inward, perpetuating cycles of torment. But as they neared, the same profound presence enveloped them, each projectile undergoing metamorphosis, shafts softening, points blossoming, until they too fell as flowers, adding layers to the growing garden at Siddhartha's feet. The air thickened with floral scent, a testament to how non-resistance converts even the sharpest attacks into sources of nourishment and beauty. Finally, in a massive onslaught, the entire army charged forward, a tidal wave of delusion intent on overwhelming through sheer numbers what individual strikes could not achieve. Swords gleamed with envious edges, axes swung with despair's weight, clubs pounded with confusion's force. But Siddhartha's radiance formed an impenetrable shield, not of rigid defense, but of all-encompassing acceptance. Weapons shattered upon contact, fragments transforming mid-air into petals that joined the blooming expanse. The battlefield, once a scene of horror, became a paradise of flowers, their colors vivid against the evening dusk. Terror seized Mara's forces. They fled in pandemonium, abandoning arms that sprouted blooms upon hitting the ground, the hideous cries dissolving into the wind. Mara stood alone, wringing his hands in anguish, questioning his failure despite his generosity to loyal servants. The retreating troops affirmed his kindness, but Mara demanded proof of Siddhartha's worthiness. The earth herself thundered in response. "I bear witness to his boundless compassion across lifetimes, offering body and life for others' sake." A woman of ethereal beauty rose from the ground to her waist, bowing reverently. "I testify to his purity and strength." Defeated, Mara wept, illusions crumbling before truth's gaze. As sunset yielded to night, the assaults ended. Transformation's complete attacks into flowers, symbolizing equanimity's power to alchemize suffering into wisdom. Siddhartha's meditation continued undisturbed, transitioning to the watches where enlightenment would unfold. The earth's witness and Mara's defeat, as the barrage of assaults from Mara's formidable army transformed miraculously into a blooming garden of flowers beneath the Bodhi tree. A profound silence descended upon the grove, broken only by the fading echoes of the retreating forces. Siddhartha remained seated in perfect equanimity, his meditation undisturbed, embodying the unshakable presence that had turned every weapon of delusion into symbols of beauty and peace. The ground around him was now carpeted in petals of every hue, white lotuses signifying purity, red roses evoking transformed passion, yellow blooms radiating wisdom's light, creating a fragrant paradise where moments before chaos had reigned. This alchemical shift was no accident, but the natural consequence of non-resistance. by meeting fear and desire with unwavering awareness, Siddhartha had revealed their inherent emptiness, allowing them to dissolve into their opposite. The air grew heavy with the scent of victory, not through conquest, but through revelation, as Mara's illusions crumbled under the weight of truth. Yet, even as his army fled in terror, abandoning their shattered weapons that sprouted into yet more flowers, Mara himself lingered on the battlefield, a solitary figure wringing his hands in anguish and confusion. The once mighty lord of delusion, who had ruled over human consciousness through ages of ignorance, now faced the devastating recognition that his dominion was built on shadows that vanished before genuine light. Mara's despair manifested in a cry that echoed through the twilight. "What have I done wrong? How can this one man withstand everything I unleash?" His voice, once commanding and seductive, now trembled with the vulnerability of an exposed illusion. He reflected on his perceived benevolence, proclaiming to the empty field, "I have been generous to those who served me, granting desires to countless beings who sought my aid. Those who fled could bear witness to my kindness and the rewards I bestowed for their loyalty." The retreating troops, still within earshot as they scattered like leaves in the wind, called back in affirmation, "Yes, you have been kind and generous to us, and we will testify to your gifts and favors." Their voices carried a hollow ring, laced with the finality of loyalties dissolving in the face of undeniable truth. Mara, clutching at this fading support like a drowning man grasping at straws, turned his gaze toward Siddhartha, who sat serene and unmoved. In a last, desperate challenge, Mara demanded, "But what proof has this man given of his own generosity? What sacrifices entitle him to claim victory over powers that have governed consciousness since time's beginning? Who will bear witness to his qualifications for the awakening he dares to seek? Where are the supporters who can testify to his worthiness?" In that pivotal moment, as the sun dipped fully below the horizon and the first stars pierced the deepening sky, a response arose, not from the heavens above, but from the earth below, the foundational mother of all existence, who had silently witnessed every act of compassion throughout the ages. The ground trembled gently, not with destructive force, but with the resonant authority of geological wisdom, as a voice emerged from the depths, carrying the weight of mountains and the nurturing essence of soil. "I will bear witness to his generosity," the earth declared, her tone echoing like the rumble of ancient rivers carving valleys of truth. This was no abstract proclamation, but the testimony of reality itself, the stable ground that supports all life and records every selfless deed in its eternal ledger. The earth's voice continued, flowing with the accumulated insight of countless seasons. "Yes, I, the mother of all beings, gladly testify to his boundless generosity. 100 times, 1,000 times across his previous existences, this being has offered his hands, his eyes, his head, his entire body in service to others who suffered or stood in need." As these words reverberated, a woman of extraordinary beauty and grace emerged from the earth up to her waist, rising like a lotus blooming from nourishing mud, her form radiant and unsoiled by the soil that birthed her. She bowed before Siddhartha with hands clasped in profound reverence, her presence a living embodiment of the earth's nurturing spirit. "O most holy of beings," she intoned, her voice melodic as a stream over pebbles, "I too bear witness to your boundless generosity and your worthiness to achieve the supreme awakening that will benefit every conscious creature." Her testimony sealed the earth's affirmation, highlighting Siddhartha's lifetimes of sacrifice, not for personal gain, but for alleviating others' pain, offering limbs and life itself in acts of ultimate compassion. In this current existence, destined to be his last before complete liberation, he would destroy the very foundations of aging, sickness, and death, surpassing Mara in spiritual strength as profoundly as in selfless giving. Mara, confronted with this irrefutable witness from the earth herself, the impartial recorder of all deeds, felt the final pillars of his illusion crumble. No longer could he deny the superior merit of the one he sought to defeat. Siddhartha's generosity flowed from a heart unbound by conditions, a compassion that embraced all beings without limitation. Mara's defeat was complete, not through physical battle or verbal debate, but through the simple revelation of truth's superiority over deception. He wept then, tears not of bodily pain, but of profound sorrow, the grief of delusion finally perceiving its own hollowness, the lament of shadows dissolving in light. This was the end of an era where fear and desire had reigned unchallenged, the dawn of a time when beings could access wisdom, freeing them from unnecessary torment. Mara's army had fully fledged by sunset, their forms dissipating like mist before the rising moon, leaving the grove in tranquil silence. With Mara's retreat, the battlefield, once a chaos of elemental fury and psychological weapons, now resembled a celestial garden, flowers blanketing the earth in vibrant testimony to transformation's power. Siddhartha's meditation continued seamlessly, his presence a beacon of unshakable peace. The earth's witness had affirmed his path, validating lifetimes of preparation and sacrifice. Mara's defeat symbolized the triumph of awareness over ignorance, compassion over craving a victory won without raising a hand, through the sheer force of equanimous resolve. As night fully enveloped the grove, the stage was set for the three watches, where Siddhartha would penetrate existence's mysteries and emerge as the Buddha, the awakened one. This moment underscored a timeless truth. What resists persists, but what accepts with understanding transforms even the fiercest adversaries into allies of enlightenment. The cosmos rejoiced subtly, stars twinkling brighter, as destiny unfolded beneath the Bodhi's shade. The three watches of the night and full awakening. With Mara's defeat sealed by the earth's resounding testimony and his illusory armies scattered like shadows before dawn, the grove beneath the Bodhi tree returned to profound tranquility, the floral carpet of transformed weapons perfuming the air as a testament to non-resistance's power. Siddhartha, unmoved throughout the onslaught, continued his meditation seamlessly, his presence a beacon of unshakable equanimity that had turned every assault into beauty. As sunset yielded to the enveloping night, where stars emerged like silent witnesses to cosmic unfolding, the stage was set for the deepest phases of his contemplation. The darkness that blanketed the world mirrored the inner exploration ahead, not a void of ignorance, but a fertile space for illumination. Divided into three watches, this nocturnal vigil would see Siddhartha penetrate the veils of existence, unraveling the mysteries that had eluded seekers through ages. Each watch built upon the last, his awareness expanding like the night sky, revealing layer upon layer of celestial depth, culminating in the full awakening that would forever change human understanding of suffering and liberation. The first watch of the night commenced as darkness fully settled, a gentle blanket preparing consciousness for transformative rest. Siddhartha's meditation deepened, his breath a subtle anchor guiding him inward. In this phase, his perception transcended ordinary boundaries, granting the divine eye that revealed his own previous lives, not as abstract tales but as vivid, direct memories spanning countless existences. He witnessed himself born into myriad forms, sometimes as a humble villager toiling in fields under relentless sun, other times as a wise sage imparting knowledge in forested retreats, or even as animals navigating instinct's raw imperatives. Each life unfolded in sequence: infancy's helpless dependence, youth's vigorous exploration, maturity's accumulated wisdom, old age's gradual decline, and death's inevitable transition, only to rebirth in new circumstances shaped by prior actions. Joys sparkled like fleeting stars, moments of love shared with companions, triumphs over challenges, insights gleaned from nature's lessons. Sorrows pierced like thorns, losses of loved ones, betrayals breeding doubt, physical ailments testing endurance. Through this panoramic recall, Siddhartha discerned the unbroken thread of consciousness weaving through every incarnation, evolving with each cycle's lessons. Karmic patterns emerged clearly: compassionate deeds yielding favorable rebirths, ignorant actions perpetuating suffering, revealing how the mind's habits propelled the wheel of samsara. This knowledge was no mere intellectual grasp, but experiential truth, dissolving the illusion of a singular, isolated self into a continuum of growth. The only way out is through, he internalized, seeing how every joy and sorrow had contributed to his current readiness, compassion deepening for all beings ensnared in similar loops. As the stars wheeled overhead in their eternal dance, and the world slumbered in peaceful repose, the second watch unfolded, Siddhartha's awareness expanding further to encompass the present condition of all beings across the universe. With clairvoyant vision unhindered by time or space, he perceived countless creatures, humans in bustling cities, animals in wild forests, celestial entities in ethereal realms, each experiencing the fruits of their own choices and actions. This was not a judgmental gaze, but a compassionate observation of cause and effect. Beings trapped in anger, creating circumstances that amplified their rage, like echoes in a canyon. Those lost in fear, attracting more threats that confirmed their anxieties. Souls mired in confusion, generating chaos that perpetuated bewilderment. He saw farmers toiling with contentment, their simple integrity yielding inner peace despite hardship. Merchants driven by greed, their pursuits leading to hollow victories and eventual loss. Rulers wielding power justly, fostering harmony, or tyrannically, sowing seeds of their downfall. Every action rippled outward, shaping individual realities and interconnecting with others in a vast web of dependent origination. Yet, amid this tapestry of conditioned existence, Siddhartha glimpsed infinite potential for change. In every moment, any being could shift their response from reactivity to mindfulness, stepping out of destructive cycles into paths of growth. Peace is not the absence of conflict, but presence in the midst of it, he realized, understanding that challenges contained the very wisdom needed to transcend them. This watch illuminated the universality of suffering while highlighting liberation's accessibility, his heart swelling with empathy for all wanderers in existence's forest. The third watch arrived as the night reached its deepest hour, dawn's subtle preparation stirring on the eastern horizon. Siddhartha's understanding now pierced to the core of reality, unraveling the intricate chain of causes and conditions that sustained suffering and revealing the path to its cessation. In this profound absorption, encompassing all time and space, he articulated inwardly the foundational truths that would become his teaching's cornerstone. Miserable indeed is this world, he observed, born, growing old, dying, then reborn only to repeat the cycle, yet beings know no escape because they misunderstand its cause. With crystalline clarity, he perceived ignorance as the root, unawareness of impermanence, no self, and suffering breeding desire, attachment leading to rebirth's endless torment. The 12 links of dependent origination unfolded. Ignorance conditioning formations, consciousness, name and form, senses, contact, feeling, craving, grasping, becoming, birth, aging and death, each link forging the chain of samsara. But this revelation brought hope. By ending ignorance through insight, formations cease. Stifling craving prevents grasping. Living with awareness transforms desire from bondage to wisdom's ally. To exist unconsciously is to suffer, he concluded, but awakening breaks the chain desire quelled. Rebirth ends, nirvana dawns. As the first light of dawn painted the sky in rose and gold, celebrating the night's revelations, Siddhartha emerged as the Buddha, the fully awakened one, his consciousness forever liberated from delusion's grasp. The earth quaked 12 times in joyous tremor, like a mother's laughter at her child's first steps into boundless possibility. Creation blossomed. Trees flowered unseasonably, the world awakening as if mirroring his own. Gods erupted in celestial songs. He has come, the light bringer. The world's eye opens, dazzled by truth. The Buddha declared, I have sought the builder of suffering's house through vain lifetimes. What torment in this cycle! But now I see you, builder. You build no more, the rafters broken, walls crumbled, mind in nirvana, birth ended, desire transformed into wisdom, peace unattainable by externals, now his inherent nature. This full awakening was not acquisition but recognition. What he sought was always his true essence, hidden beneath conditioning, suffering revealed as mistaken identity, correctable through insight and compassion. The great work complete, the greater teaching began, his presence a lamp dispelling darkness for all ready to see. The decision to teach and the legacy of wisdom, contemplation on sharing the Dharma. For 7 days following his profound awakening beneath the Bodhi tree, the Buddha remained seated in a state of sublime peace that enveloped not only his own being, but seemed to extend outward, embracing the entire universe in its tranquil embrace. This period of serene integration allowed the full implications of his realization to settle deeply into every aspect of his consciousness, like a heavy burden finally released after eons of carrying it across countless lifetimes. The enlightenment he had achieved was not merely the cessation of personal suffering, but a complete unraveling of the illusions that bound all beings to cycles of birth, aging, sickness, death, and rebirth. Ignorance, the root cause that birthed craving and attachment, had been eradicated, revealing a truth so fundamental that it transcended ordinary categories of thought and experience. Yet, as he sat in this afterglow of liberation, A new question arose in his compassionate heart, one that would shape the future of human spiritual development. Should he share this profound wisdom with the world, or remain in silent enjoyment of the peace he had discovered? The Buddha's contemplation began with an honest assessment of the Dharma. He had realized the path to ending suffering that encompassed the Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Path. This truth, he reflected, was deep beyond ordinary comprehension, subtle in its nuances, and peaceful in a way that defied the restless pursuits most beings engaged in. It could not be grasped through mere logic or intellectual debate, for it surpassed the dualistic frameworks people used to navigate their lives: good versus evil, pleasure versus pain, self versus other. His awakening had come through direct insight, a seeing through of illusions rather than accumulating new beliefs or practices. How can I convey, he pondered, that what beings seek is already their true nature, hidden beneath layers of conditioning? That peace is not achieved, but uncovered by ceasing the mental activity that creates separation. The Dharma demanded a readiness to question fundamental assumptions, to release grasping at transient phenomena, and to live with awareness in every moment, qualities rare in a world consumed by desires and aversions. This led to a moment of hesitation, born not from selfishness but from realistic concern. Most people, he observed, were deeply entangled in the pursuit of sensory pleasures and the avoidance of discomforts, their lives a constant chase after what faded and flight from what inevitably arose. They had grown so accustomed to the chains of craving that they no longer felt their weight, suggesting removal might evoke suspicion, resistance, or outright rejection. If I teach this, the Buddha considered, who will understand without twisting it into another system of beliefs to argue over, or rituals to perform mechanically? The truth is too subtle. It might be misunderstood, corrupted into dogmas that perpetuate division rather than dissolve it. For a brief period, his compassionate nature wavered, contemplating whether silence might preserve the Dharma's purity, allowing him to abide in the bliss of nirvana without the risk of dilution. Yet, even as these thoughts of reluctance surfaced, a deeper current stirred within him, the boundless compassion that had propelled his entire quest from the palace gates onward. He recalled the faces of those he had encountered, the aged man bent by time, the diseased writhing in agony, the corpse carried in mournful procession, universal symbols of the suffering that afflicted every being, from kings to beggars. How could he withhold the understanding that could free them when their searching was so sincere and their pain so acute? Compassion swelled like a river overflowing its banks, reminding him that enlightenment was not for solitary enjoyment, but for the welfare of all. Even if only a few grasp it fully, he reasoned, those few can become lights guiding others. This shift dissolved his hesitation, affirming that teaching was an extension of his awakening, a natural outflow of love for suffering humanity. To further clarify his decision, the Buddha contemplated the varying levels of readiness among beings, drawing an analogy from nature that would become central to his teachings. Just as lotus flowers in a pond exist at different stages of growth, so too did human consciousness vary in its capacity to receive wisdom. Some lotuses remained buried deep in the mud of ignorance and confusion, untouched by light, even when it shone directly upon them. These beings, mired in base desires and unexamined habits, were not yet prepared to respond to profound truths. Others had risen partway through the water, buds beginning to sense higher possibilities, but not ready to open fully. These seekers glimpsed peace, but distorted it through existing beliefs. Yet, there were those whose consciousness had surfaced, petals poised to bloom at the sun's first touch, the ready souls who had cultivated virtue and questioned life's illusions, needing only a gentle pointing to recognize their inherent freedom. This lotus metaphor illuminated his path forward. Out of compassion for all, he would teach the Dharma, adapting it to each listener's level. For the unready, simpler guidance on ethics and mindfulness to prepare the soil. For the budding, practices to foster concentration. For the ripe, direct insight into know, self, and impermanence. Even if few understand completely, he concluded, they can become exemplars, spreading the light gradually. This decision transformed potential withdrawal into active engagement, the Buddha rising from his seat with purposeful grace, ready to share the wheel of teaching. Contemplation complete, his mind turned to the 5 ascetics' former companions, who had left upon his acceptance of nourishment, sensing their readiness despite past disillusionment. Setting out for Sarnath, he walked with the effortless pace of one beyond striving, his presence drawing admiration from passers-by who sensed something extraordinary. The decision to teach marked enlightenment's true fruition, not hoarded but shared, a legacy of compassion that would echo through millennia. Reunion with the 5 ascetics. Having resolved to share the profound Dharma he had realized beneath the Bodhi tree, the Buddha rose from his 7-day contemplation with a presence that radiated complete peace and unshakable confidence. His mind, now fully awakened to the truths that ended suffering, turned naturally to those who might first receive his teachings. The 5 ascetics, Kondana, Vapa, Badya, Mahanama, and Asaji, emerged in his thoughts as ideal recipients. These sincere seekers had been his companions during the years of extreme austerities by the Nairanjana River, sharing in the rigorous practices that mortified the body in pursuit of spiritual purity. They had departed in disappointment when he abandoned those harsh methods for the middle way, viewing his acceptance of nourishment as a compromise of the holy life. Yet, with his awakened perception, the Buddha saw beyond their judgment. Their hearts were ripe for understanding, their prior dedication having prepared them to grasp that his apparent deviation had led to a more effective path beyond sorrow. Setting out on foot toward Sarnath, where the ascetics had established their community in a deer park known for its serene beauty, he walked with the effortless grace of one who had nowhere to go because he had arrived everywhere, his every step a living embodiment of the Dharma. The journey to Sarnath unfolded through landscapes that seemed to honor his passage. Fields blooming with unseasonal flowers, birds circling in joyful patterns, and villagers offering respectful greetings without knowing why they felt compelled to do so. The Buddha's presence evoked a subtle awe in those he encountered, though most could not articulate the source, a quality of boundless compassion and clarity that made ordinary interactions feel sacred. As he approached the deer park, the 5 ascetics spotted him from afar, their initial reaction one of cautious reserve. Gathering in quiet council, they agreed upon a pact. This is Gautama, who abandoned the ascetic struggle and turned to comfort. We will not rise to greet him, offer a seat, or show the reverence due a true teacher. Their words stemmed from lingering disillusionment, yet beneath it lay the sincerity that had drawn them to spiritual life, a readiness to recognize truth when it presented itself unmistakably. As the Buddha drew nearer, however, something in his aura began to affect them profoundly, softening their resolve without effort. His steps carried no arrogance, his gaze held infinite kindness, and the peace enveloping him was palpable, like a gentle breeze dispelling morning mist. Almost involuntarily, the ascetics found themselves rising to their feet, one preparing a seat woven from grass, another fetching water to wash his feet and offer refreshment after the journey. This spontaneous courtesy surprised them, for it contradicted their agreement, yet it felt utterly natural in his presence, as if they stood before one who had discovered something beyond their imagining. Kondana, the eldest, voiced their confusion. "Gautama, we had resolved not to honor you thus, yet here we are, compelled by something in your bearing." The Buddha smiled gently, his voice carrying a timbre that immediately captured their attention. "My friends, do not address me by my former name, as an equal. I have become a Tathagata, one who has realized the way beyond all suffering, and I come to turn the wheel of Dharma for your benefit and that of all beings." At first, the ascetic skepticism resurfaced, their minds clinging to past perceptions. "How can you claim such attainment?" Vapa challenged, "when you gave up the effort and returned to ease, while we maintained our disciplines?" Their question echoed the era's prevailing belief in austerity as the sole path to purity. Yet the Buddha's presence made dismissal difficult. There was an undeniable authority in his words, born not from intellectual prowess but from direct realization, and a peace in his eyes that spoke of one who had indeed transcended the torments they still wrestled with. Over the ensuing days, as they conversed in the deer park's tranquil setting, deer grazing peacefully nearby, the air filled with bird song, the Buddha shared his insights with patient simplicity, adapting his explanations to meet their understanding. He began by recounting his journey since their parting, the recognition of extreme's limitations, the middle way's balance, the prophetic dreams, the final meal from Sujata, the vow beneath the Bodhi tree, Mara's assaults transformed into flowers, and the 3 watches unveiling past lives, beings' conditions, and dependent origination. The ascetics listened intently, their initial doubt giving way to fascination as his words resonated with their own seeking. "I too pursued denial," the Buddha explained, believing it would conquer desire, but it weakened the mind, hindering clarity. The path lies in harmony, nourishing the body to support insight without attachment. This addressed their core objection, revealing his compromise as wisdom's refinement. Gradually, the Buddha introduced the 4 noble truths, framing them as observations cutting through life's complexity. The first, existence contains dukkha, fundamental dissatisfaction from impermanence, where even joys fade. Stop fighting reality, he taught, and much suffering ends. The second, dukkha's cause is craving, resisting change or clinging to transience. The third, suffering can cease completely, not endured but transcended through understanding true nature. The fourth, the Eightfold Path, as practical guide right view, seeing clearly, intention from compassion, speech truthful and kind, action honoring interconnectedness, livelihood without harm, effort balanced, mindfulness present, concentration stable. These weren't rigid rules but descriptions of awakened living. One by one, the ascetics experienced breakthroughs. Kondana first. his face illuminating. "I see what we sought through force is recognized through awareness, always present beneath striving." Others followed, their realizations infectious, forming the first Sangha community of the awakened. Joy spread, attracting seekers, sensing something extraordinary. The reunion transformed skepticism into devotion, the Buddha's teaching a bridge from doubt to liberation. This gathering marked the Dharma's dissemination, the 5 becoming initial disciples spreading his message. Their reunion exemplified readiness meeting truth, skepticism yielding to insight. In Sarnath's peace, the wheel turned, legacy beginning, teaching the 4 noble truths. In the tranquil deer park of Sarnath, where the Buddha had reunited with the 5 ascetics and transformed their skepticism into profound realization, he began to unfold the core of his awakening through teachings that would become the foundation of his legacy. These initial discourses were not elaborate philosophies laden with esoteric rituals, but simple, direct observations about the nature of existence and the path to freedom from suffering. Over several days, as the group sat in the shade of ancient trees with deer grazing peacefully nearby, the Buddha shared what he called the 4 noble truths. 4 fundamental insights that cut through the complexity and confusion surrounding human life. He presented them not as dogmas to be believed blindly, but as practical truths to be verified through personal experience, emphasizing that his role was to point the way, not to demand faith. "Test these teachings as a goldsmith tests gold," he advised, through examination and application. The ascetics, their minds now open after witnessing his radiant presence and hearing his journey, listened with rapt attention, their prior austerities having prepared them to grasp these truths deeply. The Buddha began with the first noble truth, the reality of dukkha, or suffering, which permeates existence in ways both obvious and subtle. He explained that life as most people experience it contains a fundamental dissatisfaction arising from not understanding the nature of reality. This is not a pessimistic view, but a straightforward acknowledgement of the obvious. Birth brings vulnerability, aging erodes vitality, sickness assaults health, death ends all worldly ties, and throughout, beings face unwanted separation from what they love, and unwanted union with what they aversion. Even moments of pleasure are tinged with dukkha because they are impermanent, slipping away and leaving longing in their wake. The teaching is simple, the Buddha said. Stop fighting reality, and half of your suffering ends immediately. He drew from his own life the palace joys that proved hollow upon seeing old age, sickness, and death, the ascetic pains that failed to yield lasting peace. The ascetics nodded, recognizing their own relentless struggles mirrored in this truth, how their denials had suppressed but not eliminated suffering's undercurrent. This truth invited honest reflection. Dukkha was universal, from kings' thrones to beggars' streets, but acknowledging it was the first step toward transcendence. Moving seamlessly to the second noble truth, the Buddha illuminated the origin of dukkha, tanha, or craving, the insistent desire for things to be different from what they are. This craving manifests in 3 forms: sensual pleasures, existence itself, and non-existence, and stems from ignorance of impermanence, driving beings to cling to transience or resist inevitables. We suffer not because difficult things happen, he clarified, but because we resist difficulties when they arise and grasp pleasures when they fade. Craving keeps the wheel of samsara turning. birthing actions, karma, that lead to rebirth and further dukkha. Drawing from his encounters, the Buddha described how palace luxuries fueled attachment, leading to fear of loss, while austerities bred craving for release, perpetuating inner conflict. The ascetics reflected on their own experiences, how denying food intensified hunger's pull, or how pursuing purity through pain created aversion to the body. This truth revealed suffering as self-created through misguided responses, not an external curse, empowering them to see change as possible by addressing the cause. The third noble truth brought a wave of hope, as the Buddha proclaimed that dukkha can completely cease nirodha, the extinction of craving leading to unconditioned peace. This is not annihilation, but the end of unnecessary torment, a state where one experiences reality without the distortions of desire or aversion. Suffering is not a permanent fate to endure, he emphasized, but a case of mistaken identity correctable through wisdom and compassion. By understanding our true nature beyond the illusion of a separate, permanent self, we realize peace as inherent, not dependent on external arrangements. The Buddha shared his Bodhi realization, seeing dependent origination dissolved craving, revealing nirvana's bliss here and now. For the ascetics, this resonated deeply. Their austerities had glimpsed respite, but now they saw complete cessation as attainable, not through force but insight. This truth shifted perspective. Enlightenment was recognition, not achievement, inspiring joy as they sensed its proximity. Finally, the fourth noble truth outlined the path leading to dukkha's end, the Noble Eightfold Path, a practical guide to living with awareness, ethics, and concentration. Not sequential steps, but interconnected aspects of awakened life. It includes right understanding, seeing reality clearly, right intention, motivated by compassion, right speech, truthful and kind, right action, harming none, right livelihood, ethical sustenance, right effort, balanced energy, right mindfulness, present attention, and right concentration, stable focus. This is no complicated system, the Buddha assured, but ways of embodying truth in daily moments. He illustrated with examples. Right understanding dispels ignorance like his chariot insights. Right action avoids harm, as in his vow of non-violence. The ascetics, applying this to their lives, saw how extremes lacked balanced denial, ignored right effort's moderation. Over days, they practiced meditations deepening, conversations clarifying, the truths integrating as lived experience. Teaching these truths, the Buddha adapted to his audience, using analogies like the lotus for readiness levels. The ascetics became the first to fully comprehend, Kondana exclaiming, "All conditioned things are impermanent. Understanding this ends suffering." They formed the initial Sangha, their awakening sparking others' interest. This sharing marked the Dharma's birth, a legacy of practical wisdom, freeing beings through insight, not blind faith. The Four Noble Truths, simple yet profound, offered a diagnosis, cause, cure, and prescription for life's ills, the Buddha's gift to a suffering world.